If you're new to our channel, we'd love to have you join our little community. Just hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. We promise it will be worth your while.
It started when I was 9 years old. I have 2 sisters. Linda is 3 years older than I am, and Denise is my twin. One day while we were playing, Linda decided we should play dress up, her favorite game. She found a pretty dress for her and one for Denise. After getting all dressed, Linda looked at Denise and said, "Let's find something for Denny to wear." They rooted through their things until they found a pair of pink nylon panties with lace around the waist and down the front. Next were pink lace-rimmed anklets, a white slip, and a pink party dress with sheer fluffy sleeves and a sash. I took the panties and went into the closet we were using for a dressing room. I took off all of my clothes and pulled the panties up. My sisters then put the slip over my head and pulled it down. It was really very pretty. It had a pretty little pink flower and bow at the chest and lace around the bottom. I couldn't believe how nice the clothes felt. I never had anything that nice on before. Next, I sat down and put the socks on, folding them over to show off the pretty lace trim, as I'd watched my mom do for my sisters. My sisters then put the dress over my head and pulled it over my slip. They buttoned up the back and tied the sash into a bow. Then they grabbed a brush and fixed my hair to give me bangs just like Denise had. It all seemed so much fun for me to put on the clothes and pretend I was Denise's twin sister Diane. We played for the whole afternoon that way, with me trying on just about every dress Denise had in her closet. As a joke, we all went downstairs to introduce our mom to Diane. Mom laughed when she was introduced and said, "Diane, you certainly are a pretty little girl. I don't know why, but it made me happy to have Mom call me a pretty girl. Please go back up and change now, girls," said Mom. "It's almost time for dinner, and I wouldn't want you to mess up your pretty dresses." We raced up the steps giggling and carrying on like the silly little girls we were. My sisters took off their dresses and then helped me out of mine. I hated to take it off, but to my delight, Linda suggested that we change into sundresses. I peeled off my slip and found a pretty lilac-colored sundress of Denise's and quickly slipped it over my head. I stepped into a pair of my twin sandals, and we girls were off to eat dinner. My mom was somewhat surprised that Diane had come back, but once again told me how pretty I looked. I blushed as my sisters giggled about their new sister. Just then, the front door opened and my father returned from work. He looked at my sisters, smiled, and then seemed puzzled as he looked at me. "Hi, Dad," I said. "We were playing dress up, and I'm your new daughter, Diane." My father looked me over from head to toe. He then turned to my mom and said, "Looks like we have 3 daughters now." We sat down and ate dinner without another word being said about the new addition to our family. After dinner, my sisters and I helped Mom clean up the kitchen and then went in to watch television with Dad. When bedtime came, we went to our separate bedrooms to get ready for bed. Mom came in to help me get ready. "I thought you might need a little help with your outfit," she said. She helped me pull the dress over my head and seemed surprised that I was wearing panties. My, she said, "You certainly went all out, didn't you?" I took off the panties, put my own underwear and PJs on, and went to sleep remembering the fun time I had that day. The next day, I went out to play with my friends and forgot all about Diane. I didn't give much thought to the game of dress up we had played for some time after that. Then one rainy day, I couldn't go out to play. I was very bored. There was nothing good on television, and I didn't feel like playing any of my board games. Mom noticed that my sisters were equally bored and suggested we go to a movie. She added that she had a special treat planned. That sounded great to us kids, and we quickly agreed. "I think you kids should first take a bath and change clothes," said Mom. "You want to look nice when we go out." Mom looked at me, smiled, and said, "Let your sisters get ready first, Denny, okay?" "Sure," I said. I didn't much care for the idea of bathing and putting on better clothes anyway. Soon my mom told me that it was time for my bath. I went into the bathroom and found a bubble bath waiting. "Wow, I love a bubble bath," I exclaimed. "Hurry up, Denny. We don't want to be late for the show," said Mom. I jumped into the tub and took the quickest bath I could. When I finished, Mom gave me a robe and told me to go to my room and get dressed. "What should I wear?" I asked. Mom said not to worry. She set clothes up for me. When I went into my room, I got a shock. There on my bed was a pretty yellow dress, panties, a slip, and a pair of white tights. "Mom, where are my clothes?" I asked, puzzled. "Right there on your bed, Diane." Mom said, "This is the treat I mentioned." I was a little surprised at her calling me Diane. It had been several months since I had played dress up. "But Mom," I cried, "these are girls' clothes. I can't wear these." Mom just laughed and said, "Sure you can, Diane. You make a very pretty little girl, remember." Mom ignored the horrified look on my face as I pleaded that someone might see me. "Don't worry, sweetie," she said reassuringly. "Believe me, no one will ever notice you. Now let me help you get ready, dear." Since Mom thought it was okay, I began to get ready. I pulled on the panties and slip and was reaching for the dress when Mom stopped me. "Don't forget your tights, Diane. They'll really add something to your outfit." She had me sit down on the bed while she rolled them over my feet and up my legs. "There," she said. "Now for your dress." She placed the dress over my head and zipped it up the back. She handed me a pair of my twins' white shoes and led me to a full-length mirror. "Now, just a little bit more, and we ladies will be all set." She brushed my hair into a page, boy style with bangs, and then put a pretty yellow beret in it. Smoothing bangs onto my forehead, she smiled and said, "Perfect. No one will ever know you're not a little girl." Looking into the mirror, I knew she was right. This is going to be fun, I thought. When we went downstairs, I found that my sisters had similar outfits on. "Wow," said Linda, "you're really pretty." "Yeah," said Dennis, "you make a great girl." The show Mom took us to was in a mall, and we stopped to eat before going to the movie. No one ever looked twice. I was having a great time. After the movie, Mom said, "School starts soon. Let's look for some nice school clothes." By now, I had become quite comfortable in my new clothes and didn't mind going anywhere dressed that way. We went into a department store and headed straight for the girls' section. Mom picked out several pretty outfits for Denise and Linda and had them try them on. I just stood around wondering what it was like to try on all of these pretty clothes. I didn't have to wait long. Mom found several pretty dresses and said, "Come on, Diane. Let's see how you look in these." Mom and I went into a dressing room and I began trying on the dresses. I couldn't believe how nice the dresses felt on me. I tried on a pretty pink dress with a fluffed out skirt first. I looked at myself in the mirror and began to twirl around and around. "All right now, young lady," said Mom, "you're going to get yourself dizzy. Why not go out and show your sisters how pretty you look?" I practically ran out of the dressing room. I couldn't wait to let my sisters see me. They looked at me and smiled. "You look just great, Diane. Let's see the other dresses Mom picked out." I hurried back in to have Mom unzip my dress and help me into another. This one was white with a pink bow and sash. I slipped it on and Mom zipped me up. "How do I look now?" I asked. Mom and my sisters looked me over and smiled. "No doubt about it," said Mom. "I have 3 lovely little girls." We bought several outfits for my sisters, but Mom didn't think it was such a good idea for me to have my own dresses. "Remember," she said, "you're only playing. They need outfits for school." By the time we got home, my father was already there. He seemed shocked Mom had taken me out in public in a dress, but readily agreed with her that I certainly didn't look anything like a boy. "Have fun, Denny," he said, "but don't go out of the house dressed like that without Mom. I don't think you'd like your friends to see you in your dress-up clothes." I didn't dress as Diane very much after that. Linda didn't want to play dress up very often, and I thought of it as only a game. I was back at school that fall and didn't have much opportunity to play with my sisters. I became involved in school activities and soon forgot about Diane for a while. One thing stuck with me though. I watched the little girls in school and began to take notice of their clothes. I began to think back to my dressing up and wondered if they wore the same kinds of clothes I had worn. I noticed that they were careful to smooth out their dresses as they sat down and how they folded their hands in their laps when they were sitting. As time passed, I began to think more and more about Diane. Since my sisters didn't seem interested in playing dress-up any longer, I decided to play by myself. I went into Denise's drawers and got out a pair of panties, a slip, and some socks. Next, I went into her closet and found the pretty pink dress I had worn my first time. I carried my new outfit back to my bedroom and began to change. The panties were pale yellow with a lace waistband. I picked them because they seemed to be the prettiest ones in my sister's drawer. They felt so soft and silky next to my skin, not at all like my boys' underwear. I put on the anklets next and fixed them so the lace cuff would show. Next, I pulled on a new slip Denise had just gotten. It flared out at the bottom and was trimmed at the top and bottom with lace. When I put on the dress, my slip made it flare out, and I twirled in front of my mirror to watch it flare even more. Just then, Denise came into my room. "You look really cute in my clothes," she said, startling me. "I'm sorry, Denise," I stammered. "I was just thinking about when we played dress up and all that." Dennis smiled at me. "Come on, I have something for you," she said. We went back to her room where she took a dress from her closet. It was a yellow sundress without straps. "Here," she said. "I'm tired of this one. You can have it if you want." My heart was pounding. I was being given a dress of my very own. "Are you sure it's okay?" I asked. "Won't Mom mind? You're not wearing it anymore." Denise handed me the dress and said, "I didn't really like it when I got it. At least this way, someone gets to wear it." Just then, Mom came into the room. "Hello there, Diane," she said, smiling at me. "I haven't seen you around very much. What are you girls up to now?" "I'm letting Diane, have this dress," Mom Denise said. "I really don't like it anyhow. She likes it and doesn't have anything of her own. I sort of feel sorry for her." "Well, all right," said Mom. "Diane, why don't you change your dress? I don't want Denise's party dress to get messed up. It's not the kind of outfit to be worn around the house. Go change into your new dress if you want and put Dennis's dress back where you got it from." I went back to my room and took off the party dress and pulled on my new sundress. I was thrilled to have a dress of my very own. Once I got it on, I went back to show Mom and Denise how it looked. "Silly girl," said Mom. "You can't wear that slip. See how the straps show. Come here, young lady. Let me help you get dressed right. If you're going to wear these clothes, there are a few things you need to know." She helped me out of my dress and slip. "Hey," said Denise, "those are my favorite panties. You'd better not mess them up." "Don't worry, Denise," said Mom. "I'm sure your sister will be careful." "Now," said Mom, "if you're going to wear a slip under that dress, it'll have to be a half slip because that dress won't cover straps." She pulled a white half slip from Dennis's drawer and helped me put it on. "You'll have to make do with a regular slip. The one you had on is strictly for fancy dresses, not sundresses." Mom helped me pull down my new dress and straighten it out. "There, that's much better. See how it looks in the mirror." I stepped in front of the mirror and admired my dress. "It's so pretty. Denise, thanks for letting me have it." I went downstairs to watch television and talk to Mom. "I'm glad you let me dress like this, Mom," I said. "It feels really neat to wear these clothes." "That's all right, Diane," said Mom. "You look very pretty. Just be careful about going outside like that." Soon, my father came home from work. I raced over, threw my arms around his neck and hugged him. Denise didn't want this dress anymore. Dad, so she gave it to me, I said. Isn't it the prettiest dress you've ever seen? My dad agreed that it was certainly a pretty dress, and it did look very nice on me. I need to go to the mall later, he said. Want to come along? You mean dressed like this? I asked. Mom said I shouldn't go out dressed like this. Come on, sweetheart, Dad said. I'm sure if Mom fixed you up like she did the last time, it would be okay. He looked at Mom. How about it? He asked. Can you fix my girl up so we can go to the mall together? I'll bet she'd love to show off her pretty new dress. Sure, Mom said. I'm sure I can pretty her up for a trip to the mall. I gave Mom a great big hug and kiss. Thanks, Mom, I said. I can't wait. I practically raced through my dinner. Mom took me back up to my room. Wait here, she said. I have to get a few things. She returned in a few minutes with a pair of Linda's old shoes. Here, she said. Try these on, she said to me. They were a pair of yellow flats which matched my sundress. Linda can't fit these anymore. If they fit, they're yours. I tried them on and found them to be just right. Not that I would have said otherwise. They fit, I yelled. They fit and they'll look so pretty with this dress. Hold on, Diane. I'm not done with you yet, Mom said. Please take off your shoes and socks. I kicked off my shoes and pulled off my socks. Why do you want me to do this? I asked. Well, said Mom, you don't want to wear those pretty shoes with socks. Here, put these on. Mom handed me a pair of tan stockings for girls. I put my feet into them, and Mom helped me pull them over my panties. You have to be careful with these, Diane. You don't want to put a run in them. Once I had my stockings on, I stepped into my new shoes again. Wow. This sure does feel funny, I said, not like those tights I wore. No, Mom said, you'll have to get used to stockings. They're not heavy like tights, and they look much prettier. I stepped in front of the mirror and loved what I saw. A pretty little girl ready to go out with her dad. Let's brush your hair and put something pretty in it, said Mom. She fixed my hair into a pretty style and once again gave me bangs. Now, she said, a pretty yellow hair ribbon and you're almost through. She tied a yellow ribbon into my hair and let the sides drape down in back of my head. Take this sweater in case you get cold. Sundresses aren't good for staying warm in. Oh, and one more thing, she said. To complete your outfit, here's an old purse of Linda's. She loved to carry it when she was your age. When we got back downstairs, my dad let out a whistle. Who is this pretty young lady, Mom? This, said Mom as I curtsied, is our new daughter Diane. I spun around so that my dress flared out. I couldn't remember being this happy. My sister Linda said, You're really cute, Diane. I think it's neat to have twin little sisters. Dad looked at her and said, Let's not get carried away. It's just a little game Denny likes to play. When we got to the mall, I was afraid to get out of the car. What if someone recognizes me, Dad? I asked. Don't worry, Diane. No one's going to notice you, Dad said. You're just a little girl out shopping with her dad. We went into a department store and picked up a few things Dad needed for his car. To my relief, no one paid any attention to me, and I relaxed and began looking around. When Dad went to pay for his things, the cashier, an older man, smiled me and said to Dad, That's a pretty daughter you have. Bet she'll be a heartbreaker when she grows up. Dad smiled at me and said, Yes, she's definitely Daddy's girl. As we walked through the mall, I began to look at the pretty dresses on display in the store windows. I wonder how I'd look in that dress, I thought to myself. I didn't notice my father watching me. I soon found that for all my enjoyment, I hadn't thought of something. I needed to use the bathroom. Dad, I said, I have to go to the boys' room. No, laughed Dad. You have to go to the girls' room. I had forgotten all about how I was dressed. Dad walked me over to the restrooms and said, You're on your own now, Diane. I can't go into the ladies' room with you. I pushed open the door and was confronted with a row of stalls. Well, I thought, This isn't going to be easy. I walked over to a stall, opened the door, and went in. I closed the door behind me and lifted my dress, pulled down my stockings and panties, and sat down. When I finished, I pulled up my panties and after much struggling got my stockings pulled up and straightened out. I left the stall and passed several ladies fixing their makeup. Once again, no one paid me any attention. It was just as if I belonged there. I left the ladies' room and saw my dad standing there. "Well, I see you managed okay in there," he said. "Yes," I replied. All of the ladies acted as if I were just another girl. Dad smiled. "You look so pretty. You fit right in, Diane." We drove home, and I dashed into the house. "Mom, you'll never guess where I was. I actually went to the girls' bathroom at the mall." Mom looked somewhat puzzled. "Well, of course, Diane. Isn't that where all girls go?" I dressed off and on after that time. Mom occasionally gave some of Linda's old clothes to Denise, and soon there were several pretty dresses hanging next to the pants in my closet. One day, Mom and Dad were talking over vacation plans, and Dad said, "Yes, I'm sure he'd enjoy it." I remember him looking around at the mall. Mom saw me standing there, smiled and said, "Yes, let's get busy. We need to get a few things." "Denny." Mom said, "Come with me. We have to go shopping, and I want to get you ready." I followed Mom upstairs to my bedroom. "Get undressed," she said. "You're going shopping as Diane again." Mom went into my closet and came out with a sky blue dress in her hand. "I have to get some things from Denise. I'll be right back." I was very excited. It had been months since I went shopping as Diane and I couldn't wait to go again. Mom returned, laid down a pair of pink nylon panties, a full slip, and a pair of white knee socks. "Put these on while I get some shoes for you. I'll zip your dress up when you're ready." She returned with a pair of Denise's white dress shoes. They were very pretty with a strap and a little blue bow on front. I stepped into my panties, pulled on my slip and dress, and sat down to put on the socks. I noticed that the slip brushed against my bare legs every time I made any movement. It was a fantastic feeling, sort of a constant reminder that I was wearing a dress. Mom zipped me up, and we went downstairs to meet the rest of the family. "Dad and I have a surprise, girls," said Mom. "We're going to take a 2-week vacation at the lake next month, and Diane here will be joining us. Now we're going to the mall to pick up a few things we'll need for the vacation." I couldn't believe my ears. 2 whole weeks as Diane. This would be great. We went straight to the girls' department at our favorite mall store. Mom let Denise and Linda pick out bathing suits. They liked and then bought them some short sets to play in. "What about me?" "Mom, when can I go shopping for my stuff?" I asked. "Right now, Diane," said Mom. "After all, I want you to fit right in with the other girls. Let's find a bathing suit for my pretty girl." We rejected several styles, even though they were pretty. I didn't want anything too fitting in the bottom. We finally found a pretty pink suit with a skirt that covered the bottom part. "Let's see how you look in this one, DNA," said Mom. "I think you'll look very pretty in it." I took the suit into the dressing room, and Mom helped me out of my dress and slip. I stepped into the suit, pulled it up, and fixed the shoulder straps. "Show your sisters, Diane," she said. "I think we've found the perfect bathing suit for you." I stepped out of the dressing room, and my sisters began to giggle. "Behave, girls," said Dad. "What do you think of your sister's bathing suit?" My sisters looked at each other and smiled. "I think it's perfect for her," said Linda. "Yes," said Denise. "You look just great, Diane." We shopped for several hours, making sure we would have everything needed for 2 weeks. My mom went to the girls' underwear section and came back with a full slip, a half slip, and several packages of nylon panties. Next, we picked out several short sets for me and a pair of sandals. "One last thing, Diane," said Mom. "We need to get you a couple of summer nightgowns for the trip." I found several pretty ones I liked. One was a pale yellow baby doll style with matching panties. It had a lace trim around the neck, armholes, and bottom and the panties had a lace trim around the leg openings. I also picked out a pink nylon nightgown that came to my knees and also had a pretty lace trim to it. "That should do it, girls," Mom said. "Let's go home." I was thrilled. I now had my own panties, several dresses, nightgowns, and a pretty bathing suit. What more could a girl ask for? When we got home, Mom and Dad called me into the room. "Sit down, Diane." Mom said, "Dad and I want to talk to you about the vacation." I walked to the chair across from them, smoothed the back of my dress, sat down and crossed my legs as I'd seen other girls do. "Yes, Mom, what's up?" I asked. "Well," Diane said, "Dad, it seems that you're really excited about the vacation. We thought about asking you first, but after you went to the mall with me, I didn't think we needed to ask. We want you to understand that if you take this vacation as Diane, you'll have to spend all of your time for 2 weeks as a girl," Dad said. "We won't pack any boys' clothes for you. You'll wear dresses or girls' shorts every day, all day. Will that be okay with you?" "It's just great with me, Dad," I said. "I can't wait to get ready for the trip." Mom smiled. "We will have to be making some changes, Diane. I've held off on getting you a haircut so that I can give you a perm. I think you'd look very pretty with curly hair." "Yes," said my dad. "You'll be getting a pretty new hairstyle, and Mom also has some studying for you to do." "Studying?" I asked. "I thought this was going to be a vacation trip. What do I have to study for a vacation?" Mom reached into a shopping bag next to her and brought out several magazines for young girls. "I want you to study these, DNA. You'll need to learn how to act more like a girl. We wouldn't want anyone to think that the pretty girl with the curly hair was actually a boy. Would we? You'll see what girls like to wear, what they like to think about. And for 2 weeks, you'll forget you're a boy." "It's not going to be all fun and games, Diane," said Dad. "We'll be going sightseeing and out to restaurants. I expect you to be every bit as feminine as your sisters. When people talk to you, smile and talk back. Your voice is high enough to be a girl's, and heaven knows you'll look exactly like a pretty young girl." I assured them that I would be a good girl for them and that I couldn't wait to go. "We're glad to hear that, Diane," said Mom, "because as of this moment, you're going to be a girl until the end of the vacation. We'll use the next couple of weeks to get you used to being a girl all of the time. First things first, go wash your hair and meet me in the kitchen. It's time to give you a perm." I followed Mom into the kitchen and sat down. "I think you'll need to change clothes, dear. I wouldn't want to mess up that pretty dress," Mom said. "Linda, could you take Diane upstairs and find her something else to wear, please?" I followed my sister to her room. She began rooting through Denise's clothes. "Take off your dress and slip, Diane. You can wear this top and slacks for your perm," she said. She unzipped my dress. I stepped out of it and took off my slip. Seeing the look of disappointment on my face, Linda smiled and said, "Don't worry, Diane. You'll be wearing lots of dresses over the next couple of weeks. After all, this is a pair of girls' slacks and a girl's top you're putting on, and you'll be wearing panties and knee socks too." That cheered me up, and I pulled on the slacks and top. Even if they were pants, they felt softer than any pants I owned, and the top was a pretty shade of pink. "These pants feel really nice. Linda, how do I look in them?" "You look like a cute little girl. It's hard to believe you're really a boy," Linda said as she looked me over. "Let's go downstairs, little sister. It's time to get your hair done." I went back into the kitchen where Mom had everything ready. "Lean over the sink, dear," she told me. "We have to wash your hair first." I leaned over, and Mom began washing my hair. After we wash it, Mom said, "I'll trim it up a little to make it look just right. I can't wait to see how pretty you'll look when we're all done." Mom washed and trimmed my hair, then began putting a smelly liquid all over it. "This will keep your hair looking nice and curly. Once this is done, I'll set it in curlers. You'll see what girls go through to look pretty, and once you're done, you'll see that it was worth it." It felt funny having my hair in curlers. Mom said I'd have to keep them in for a few hours for the perm to work. In the meantime, I began reading one of the magazines Mom had gotten for me. The magazine was written especially for girls my age and talked about some of the television shows I watched. The difference was that the stories were about how cute some of the young actors were and what the girls in the show liked to wear and do. I really never thought about what the girls in the show liked or not, but now I found it fun to read about their favorite clothes and stuff like that. There were lots of pictures of the girls in different outfits, and I started thinking about what I would look like in a certain outfit. Some of the dresses were really pretty, and I wished that I had them for my own. After a while, Mom called me in to take out my curlers. She carefully unrolled them and then began fixing my hair with a brush. When she was done, she said that I looked like one of the prettiest girls she'd ever seen. Then she asked me to come upstairs with her so that she could find me something really pretty to wear. "You look much too pretty to wear slacks and that old top, Diane," she said. "Let's get you into a pretty party dress before we show you off to the rest of the family." Mom had me take off my slacks and top while she found an outfit for me. She soon returned with a cream-colored dress with long, puffy sleeves and lots of lace on the top part of the dress. The sleeves and top of the dress were made of a material that you could almost see through. It had a pretty sash that could be tied in the back and a small pink rose at the neck. She handed me the full slip she had bought for me and helped me into it. It felt very silky and had lace on the top. "Take your socks off, Diane," she said. "You'll need to wear stockings to look good in this dress." I took off my socks and carefully pulled the stockings onto my legs. I pulled each leg up very carefully and fixed the waistband. Mom put the dress over my head and helped me get my arms into the sleeves. She pulled it down, zipped me up, and tied the sash. Next, she gave me a pair of Linda's old patent leather shoes that buckled across the front. She brushed my hair a little more and then led me down to have the rest of the family see me. When my sisters saw me, all they could say was, "Wow!" My dad smiled and hugged me. "I can't believe that this is the same little boy I saw earlier. What happened to Denny?" I walked over to the full-length mirror and saw no sign of a little boy. All I could see was a girl with lots of curls wearing a pretty dress. I noticed that you could see the top of my slip through the dress. "That's okay, Diane," Mom said. "It's supposed to look that way. Do you like the way you look?" I ran my hands down the front of my dress and fluffed up my skirt. "I love it, Mom," I exclaimed. "The stockings really do look better with this dress." "Let's take a picture of her, Mom," Linda said. "We could put it into our album with the family pictures." Mom got the camera and had me pose for several pictures. "Put your hands in front of you, Diane," Mom said. "We want these pictures to show a pretty girl, so you have to learn to stand like a girl would." I did as she said and flashed what I thought was my prettiest smile for her. "Good girl," she said. "Now sit on the couch for the next one." I walked over to the couch, and as I sat down, I held the back of my dress the way my sisters held theirs. "Cross your legs, sis," yelled Denise. "You don't want anyone looking up your dress." "I don't think we're going to have a problem, do you, dear?" Dad asked Mom. Mom looked at me and smiled. "No," she said. "I think he'll make a perfect little lady." Just then, a car pulled into the driveway. "It's Aunt Lynn," yelled Denise. Linda said, "Mom, let's play a trick on her. Let's tell her that Diane is really Denise." Everyone thought that was a great idea. Everyone but me, that is. "I can't do that, Mom," I protested. "She'll know right away that I'm Denny. Then how do we explain these clothes?" "Don't worry, Diane," Dad said. "I'm sure she'll fall for our joke. Think of this as getting ready for the vacation. If we can fool your mom's sister, we can fool your mom's sister, we can fool anyone." I reluctantly agreed, since it didn't seem as though I was going to have much choice. Mom told Denise to hide upstairs and wait until Linda came to get her. Dad went over to the door to meet Aunt Lynn. I just stood there hoping everything would be okay. My aunt walked in and greeted Mom. Looking at Linda at me, she said, "Hi girls, how are my favorite nieces today?" Linda smiled and said, "Hi Aunt Lynn. We were just looking at Denise's new dress. Mom gave her a perm. Isn't she pretty?" Aunt Lynn smiled at me and said, "Yes, Linda. She does look very pretty. How did you like your first perm, Denise?" Mom, Dad, and Linda were trying not to laugh. "It was nice, Aunt Lynn," I said. "Do you think my hair looks pretty this way?" Aunt Lynn always did have trouble telling my voice from Denise's, so talking wasn't going to give me away. Aunt Lynn smiled at me. "Yes, I do, Denise," she said. "Come over here and give me a big hug." I walked over, put my arms around her, and hugged her. "You're getting to be such a pretty young lady," she said. "Soon you'll be going to dances with Linda." I thought my family was going to bust out laughing. Aunt Lynn held me at arm's length and looked me over. "That's a pretty slip. You're wearing Denise and stockings too. You're really dressing like a young lady now," she said. "No more little girl clothes for you." That was too much for everyone to take, and they burst out laughing. "What's so funny?" Aunt Lynn asked. "Lynn," Mom laughed. "I think he likes little girl clothes." "What's so funny? And who's he?" Aunt Lynn asked, puzzled. "Linda, go upstairs and get our surprise," Dad said. Linda left and came back a minute later with Denise. "Lynn," said Dad, "this is Denise. You've been talking to your nephew Denny." Even after explaining everything to her aunt, Lynn couldn't believe it. "But," she said, "why is he wearing a dress and stockings? And that's definitely a pretty slip underneath her. I mean his dress." Mom put her arm around me and said, "It's like we just told you. He looked so cute. We decided to see if we could really pretty him up." "I'm amazed," Aunt Lynn said. "I never would have guessed that this pretty girl was actually a boy." She just kept staring at me, and I was beginning to feel uncomfortable. "Good, we're glad to hear that, Lynn," said Dad. "If you couldn't tell, no one will know when she's on vacation either." Mom and Dad explained to my aunt that since I liked wearing pretty clothes, they had decided to take me on a vacation as a girl. "Maybe I can help," Aunt Lynn said. "He certainly can't stay inside until you leave, and he certainly can't go out to play as a girl either. How about if Diane here stays with me for a few weeks until you go on vacation? No one would know her, and I'd love the company. She can practice being a girl where nobody knows her and still go outside to play." That sounded like a great idea to me, and plans were made for me to stay with Aunt Lynn as her niece. I helped Mom pack the clothes I would need for my stay with Aunt Lynn. Mom packed several dresses that Linda had outgrown, my new nightgowns, and several pairs of shorts and tops. I gathered my new panties, a slip, and several pairs of knee socks and anklets. "Don't forget to bring your bathing suit," Aunt Lynn called to me. "We can go swimming at the local pool." After I gathered all of my clothes, Dad helped me to carry them out to the car. "Have fun, sweetheart," he said. "Don't forget you're Diane until the end of the vacation." I brushed up the skirt of my dress. "Don't worry about that, Dad. I don't feel anything like a boy," I said. "Besides, it would be tough to think of myself as a boy in this outfit." After a couple of weeks had passed, I found that I was really enjoying my vacation as Diane. I didn't realize how easy it was going to be for me to be a girl. Aunt Lynn helped me quite a bit by letting me dress up in her clothes when we were alone in the evenings. I put on fashion shows, modeling her pretty outfits while she taught me how to walk, sit, and stand. I learned how to wear garter belts and stockings, how to put on and zip up a skirt without any help, and how to coordinate accessories such as shoes, purses, and jewelry with different outfits. Aunt Lynn taught me all about using makeup to make myself look prettier and how to fix my own hair and nails. Playing with the other girls taught me how to relax and be a girl. I never had to think about what I was saying. It seemed to come naturally. My aunt was always helping me to become more ladylike, even teaching me how to walk in heels. Walking in heels really taught me feminine grace. If I didn't take small, ladylike steps, I'd end up tripping in them. "You know," Aunt Lynn said, "I'll bet you could pass as a girl absolutely anywhere. You're comfortable enough, dressed as a girl, that no one would ever know you're a boy. You'd make a gorgeous teenage girl in a few years. It's too bad you had to be a boy." I didn't know how to react to Aunt Lynn. I enjoyed playing boys' games and acting like a boy, but that was before she had helped me to become Diane. I suddenly realized that I had not been thinking of myself as Denise since I came here. I was Diane, and I was very happy being Diane. I loved my pretty panties, nightgowns and dresses, and I had grown used to setting my hair and wearing nail polish. Most upsetting of all, though, was that I really enjoyed being a girl. "Maybe I could keep dressing this way over summer vacations," I suggested. "If it's okay with you, I could spend vacations here as Diane." "Maybe you could," Aunt Lynn said. "We'll talk to your family about it when they come. In the meantime, you're my pretty little niece, so relax and enjoy yourself, Diane." The next morning, I put on a pretty sundress and sandals and went out to join my girlfriends. While we were playing jump rope, Cindy's brother, Bob, showed up again. He ignored Cindy and Marcy but said a cheerful hello to me. I gave him a big smile and said hello back. I didn't understand why I felt so happy to see him, but it really cheered me up to say hi to him. I quit jumping rope and went over and sat next to him. Suddenly, Cindy and Marcy started to yell, "Bob has a girlfriend! Bob has a girlfriend!" Bob's face turned a deep red and he began to get up to leave. "Oh, be nice," I called to my friends. "He just said hello." Bob seemed to feel a little better. "Thanks, Diane," he said. "You're really nice." Without thinking, I stood on my tiptoes and gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Thanks, Bob," I said. "You're sweet." Now my friends really started to tease him, and Bob was out of there like a shot. "I can't believe you kissed him," Cindy said. "Now we'll never get rid of him." Marcy said, "He'll hang around us all the time now." "Sorry," I said. "It just seemed like a nice way to thank him, and after all, he is kinda cute." They both looked at each other and laughed. "Wait till I tell him you think he's cute," Cindy said. "That ought to make his whole day." That evening, I mentioned the kiss to my aunt. I told her I didn't plan on kissing Bob. It just seemed the right thing to do at the time. "Sounds to me like you've become more of a girl than you expected." She laughed. "Just be careful," she said. "Don't get too carried away with boys. You're still too young to be dating." I was glad my aunt understood about my kissing Bob. I hadn't planned on kissing him. I never thought I'd ever be kissing another boy. Of course, I didn't think of myself as a boy when I kissed him. I thought of myself as a girl who was kissing a really cute guy. It wasn't easy for me to understand. As Denny, I had crushes on several girls. Now a dress and panties had changed all of that. I looked like a girl, dressed like a girl, and thought like a girl. I enjoyed the pretty clothes and the way people treated me. I liked being with other girls and checking out cute guys with them. I even kissed a guy. I couldn't understand the way that I felt, but I knew there was no doubt. Without realizing it, I had become a girl. One of the things I enjoyed most about my vacation was going out with my aunt. We went to movies and restaurants several times. Each time I wore a pretty dress and had my hair curled. Everyone we met treated me so nicely, complimenting me on my dress and how pretty my hair was. As Denny, no one ever gave me a second look. We went shopping several times, and each time I got another pretty outfit. I love trying on pretty clothes, and Aunt Lynn always managed to find something nice for me to try. The sales clerks were always very nice and helpful. One even suggested that I would make a beautiful model. Once Aunt Lynn told me to put on a nice outfit with stockings for a shopping trip. I decided to wear a dress Mom had bought me before I came here. It was very pretty, with a blue and white striped sleeveless top and a solid blue skirt. I pulled on my only pair of stockings and my full slip. I loved to wear the slip because of all the pretty lace it had at the top and bottom. I pulled on my dress and stepped into a pair of sandals. Aunt Lynn said I looked like a pretty young lady as she zipped up the back of my dress. We went right to a shoe store in the mall, where my aunt told the lady working there that she wanted to get her niece her first pair of heels. I tried on several pairs before I decided on a pair of black ones with a strap across them and a pair of white slip-on with a pretty pink bow at the front. I loved how pretty my feet looked with stockings and my new shoes. Even though they had only a small heel, I was thrilled to hear the clicking noise they made when I walked. The sales lady asked if I'd like to wear a pair home, and I readily agreed. I decided the white ones would best match my dress, so I chose them. It's so nice to see little girls becoming young ladies with their first pair of heels, the clerk said. She's going to be a pretty young woman, Aunt Lynn said. It's time she learned how to dress right. We paid for my shoes and headed for the lingerie department of a major department store. You're almost 11 years old now, my aunt said. It's time you quit dressing like a little girl and learn to dress like a young lady. I know just what you need to make you feel like a pretty young lady, Diane, she said as she selected several pairs of panties for me. She was right. The panties were silky nylon in pink, yellow, white, and blue, with a band of lace around the waistband and a lace panel in the front. Compared to these, my other clothes were almost boyish. I love to wear pretty lingerie, my aunt said. It makes me feel so feminine. She also picked out a cream-colored half-slip with lace trim at the bottom for me, along with several training bras. Wait until you see the difference these will make to your figure, she said. They were very pretty, white with a little padding and a pink bow at the center. You need more. Stockings too. A girl can't get by with just one pair of stockings. She took her time looking over the display of stockings. Soon she picked out several pairs in tan, white, and black. The packages described them as feeling like silk and promised to make my legs look their loveliest. I could hardly wait to try them on. We'll have to get a couple of bras for Denise too. She laughed. I don't think she'd appreciate her brother's getting his first bra before she did. I couldn't wait to tell my girlfriends about my new bra, but first I hurried into my bedroom to try them on. Aunt Lynn unzipped my dress and I quickly stepped out of it and my slip. I was ripping apart the box the bra came in when Aunt Lynn told me to slow down. I have to help you into it, she said. Then I'll teach you how to put on your own bra. Now hold out your arms and slip the straps onto your shoulders. Once I got my arms in, she adjusted the straps and fastened the back. It was a wonderful feeling, a little tight, but I wasn't about to complain. If feeling my slip on my legs reminded me that I was wearing girls' clothes, the tightness of my bra would make sure I didn't forget that I was now a girl. I quickly pulled on my slip and smoothed it out. It now had a slight bulge in the top. You can see the difference a bra can make to a young woman's figure. Aunt Lynn laughed. Yes, I can. I said, I think I'm going to like having a bust line. I stepped into my dress again, and my aunt zipped me up. When I looked down at my chest, I marveled at my new bust line. Wait till the girls see me now, I said with glee. Yes, said my aunt, and wait till Bob sees you as a young woman. I smiled at that thought. I wondered what Bob's reaction would be when he saw me now. I slipped into my heels and ran off to see my friends. I met Cindy coming out of her house. Wow, she said. You look great, Diane. Wait till Bob sees you dressed like that. I smiled. Do you think he'll like the way I look? I asked. Cindy laughed. He already likes the way you look. He'll go nuts trying to decide if he should look at your chest or your legs. That made me blush. Do you think I really look that good? I asked. I'm just glad you don't live around here. Cindy said, I'd hate to have to compete with you for guys when we're older. Bob came out of the house just then. Hi, Diane, he said with a huge grin. How come you're all dressed up? I was thrilled that he had noticed. My aunt bought me some new stuff, I said, and I wanted to show Cindy I couldn't believe it. Cindy was right. Bob stopped looking at my chest just long enough to check out my legs. I was thrilled. Here was this really adorable guy checking me out, and I loved every second of it. "Weren't you going somewhere, Bob?" Cindy asked. "Oh yeah, that's right. He said it was nice seeing you again, Diane." Cindy and I both broke into giggles as he hurried away. The week before I was to go on vacation with my family, Aunt Lynn told me she had a special treat lined up for me. She belonged to a club that was about to have its annual dinner dance, and she planned on taking her new niece. We had a lot of work to do in the meantime. She said I would have to learn to dance as a girl, and we had to pick out the dresses we would wear. We practiced dancing with Aunt Lynn leading. I had never really danced before as a boy, so I didn't have to worry about getting confused as the female partner. I had a lot of fun learning to dance and kept thinking about how much fun it would be to dance with Bob. The best part, however, was shopping for our dresses. We went to several bridal shops and department stores trying on all kinds of dresses before Aunt Lynn found what she wanted. She tried on a beautiful pink gown made from a silky material. It had short, puffy sleeves which could be worn off the shoulder. It had a slit partway up one side, and she looked terrific in it. "I'm glad you approve," she said, "especially since you'll be wearing an identical dress." I was thrilled to death when I got to model my gown. It felt so nice on me, and I looked beautiful in it. "Thank you, Aunt Lynn," I cried. "It's the most beautiful dress I've ever seen, and I can't wait to wear it." My aunt was happy that I liked our dresses, but said we still had a few more things to get before we were done. We went to the lingerie department, where she chose matching panties, slips, and strapless bras in a pretty shade of pink for us, along with several pairs of stockings, which promised to make our legs look their prettiest. Next, we went to the shoe department, where we bought matching pink shoes. Mine had a slightly higher heel than I was used to, but Aunt Lynn said it was necessary to make my gown look just right. Aunt Lynn bought herself a pair of earrings and a matching necklace. She bought me similar jewelry, but I got clip-on earrings. "Too bad. We can't pierce your ears, Diane," she said. "I've got lots of pretty earrings you could try on." We made our final purchases and left for home. I was so excited, I wanted to hurry home to tell the other girls about my gown. I was so excited that I almost tripped going to Cindy's. Luckily for me, Bob was standing nearby and caught me as I fell. "Thanks, Bob," I said with what I hoped was my prettiest smile. "You're really sweet." Bob looked at me and smiled. "Glad to help, Diane. Anytime," he said. I was in heaven. The cutest guy in the whole world had me in his arms for a second and had smiled at me. What more could a girl ask for, except maybe a date with a guy? Of course, there were just a few problems. Aunt Lynn said I was still too young to date. I was 10, Bob was 12. The other minor problem being that I was a boy. Of course, I was willing to overlook being a boy. I'd been Diane day and night for more than 2 weeks now, and I no longer thought of myself as a boy. I looked like a girl, dressed like a girl, acted like a girl, and felt like a girl. As far as I was concerned, I was a girl. Cindy came over to interrupt my dream. "Hi, Diane. I see you've really fallen for my brother." She laughed. "Yeah," I replied. "I wish I hadn't been so clumsy. I forgot that I was wearing heels." "I know," she said. "My mom's always reminding me to walk like a lady when I wear mine. It's such a pain to have to remember to act like a lady. My brother gets to run around whenever he likes." I wanted to tell her how much nicer it was to be a girl than a guy, but then she'd wonder how I knew. I decided to just agree with her. "Right," I said. "Boys don't have to worry about how they sit or how they walk. They have it so easy." We talked for a while about how easy boys had it, and then got to what I really wanted to talk about, my new dress. Cindy agreed that it sounded very pretty and said that her family was also going to the dinner. She said she had a pretty gown picked out, but wanted it to be a surprise. "You'll love it when I see you at the dinner." She said, "Until then, you'll just have to wait." We both agreed that we'd be the prettiest girls at the dance and that the boys would be lining up to talk to us and ask us to dance. I told her about Aunt Lynn's teaching me to dance and how excited I was about the party. "Bob's going to be there, you know," Cindy remarked. My heart almost skipped a beat. "Do you think he'll want to dance with me?" I asked. Cindy giggled. "I guarantee it. He asked me if you'd come, but I said I wasn't sure." "Well, don't wait," I pleaded. "Tell him I'll be there." The day before the dance, Aunt Lynn had another surprise for me. We were both going to a beauty shop to have our hair done, and then I was to have my picture taken in a photo studio wearing my gown. The night before, I was so excited that I could hardly get to sleep. My aunt and I had assembled everything I would need to wear and set it aside for the next day. She told me she understood my giddiness. It was natural for a girl to be excited under the circumstances, but that if I didn't get some sleep, I'd look terrible in the pictures. I finally drifted off to sleep with visions of my first visit to a beauty shop swirling in my mind. Soon my aunt was waking me up and telling me it was time for breakfast. I began gulping down my cereal until my aunt interrupted. "Diane, please slow down and eat like a lady." She said, "If you're going to act so ill-mannered, you can go back to being a boy." That certainly slowed me down. I suddenly realized that I had forgotten about being a boy and was excited about being transformed into a lovely young woman. I didn't want my aunt to turn me back into a plain, ordinary boy. Now, "That's much better," my aunt laughed. "I must have scared you with that threat." I was on the verge of breaking into tears. "I'm sorry, Aunt Lynn," I said. "Please don't make change to a boy yet. I love being a girl. The clothes are so much softer and prettier, and people treat me so much nicer. I'm really enjoying being a girl." "All right, Diane," she said. "Please don't cry. I'm glad you enjoy being a girl. I've enjoyed your visit with me, and I'll hate to see you leave. In the meantime, we ladies have to get our hair done. Come on, let's get dressed." Aunt Lynn told me to put on shorts and a top for now, saying that I'd be more comfortable that way. I put on one of my new bras along with a pair of light yellow panties, yellow shorts so that my panties wouldn't show, and a pretty white top with flowers around the collar. The top buttoned in the back, and my bra straps were clearly visible through the material. I stepped into my sandals and Aunt Lynn did my hair into a cute ponytail. The lady at the beauty shop was very nice, telling my aunt how pretty I was. She said that it was a special event for a girl to get her first grown-up hairdo. Aunt Lynn mentioned the pictures, and the lady broke into a wide smile. "Don't worry, Missy," she said. "When you're done here, you'll be a gorgeous young woman." I couldn't have been happier. First, they shampooed my hair, then they trimmed it to even it up. Next, they put some kind of gel on it, which they said would help keep the style. After that, it was rolled into curlers, some large, some small. While one lady was setting my hair, another lady came over and had me take off my shoes. I was going to get a manicure and a pedicure. The lady doing my nails worked around the edges of them with some kind of file and then buffed them. "I see you've been taking good care of your nails," she said. "Pretty nails are very important to a young woman's looks." She smiled at me and continued on. "Boys really notice pretty nails on a girl, you know. Do you have a boyfriend yet?" My face must have turned beet red when she asked that. I just smiled and looked down at my feet. "Sort of," I answered. "I think my girlfriend's brother is really cute." The lady smiled at me as if she were talking to her own daughter. "Just wait until he sees what a pretty young woman you've become at the dance," she said. "I'll bet he asks you to dance every dance." I couldn't hope for more, I thought. I'd just die if Bob didn't ask me to dance. By now, my two nails were a pretty shade of pink, and the lady was gluing fake nails to my fingertips. The nails were a little longer than my own and came to a rounded tip. Once they were in place, they were painted the same shade of pink as my toenails. "This shade will match your gown," the lady said. "It's important to match your nails to your dress when you can." I had to sit under a dryer for some time to help set my new hairstyle. I passed the time reading magazines and catching up on the latest fashions for teenage girls. Soon, I was done and was moved back to a styling chair. My curlers were taken out and my hair was brushed and styled. I finally got to look at myself in the mirror after several hours of primping. I couldn't believe my eyes. Staring back at me was a girl that, as Denny, I would have gulled for. Now, as Diane, all I could do was cry. "What's wrong?" sweetheart asked the hairstylist. "Don't you like your new hair, though?" I didn't know what to say. The girl in the mirror had a gorgeous blonde hair. Mine used to be sort of a dishwater blonde, almost brown. The girl I was looking at had pretty waves throughout her shoulder-length hair. When I set mine, the best I could do was a few curls at the ends. The bangs I fought to get to do more than lay flat were now fluffed out from my forehead and curled towards either side of my head. "It's not that," I said through my tears. "It's the most beautiful hairstyle I've ever seen." My aunt, who was also having her hair and nails done, stood behind me. "You're beautiful, Diane," she said, "the prettiest young lady I've ever seen." "You look beautiful too, Aunt Lynn," I exclaimed. "We'll be the prettiest ladies at the dance." Aunt Lynn smiled and kissed me on the cheek. "You know, Lynn," said the hairstylist to my aunt, "he was pretty when you brought him in, but now you can be certain that no one will ever guess that this beautiful young lady is really a boy." I almost died when I heard that. "Aunt Lynn," I cried, "you mean she knows about me?" I felt as though the world had just crashed in on me. "Yes, Diane," my aunt said, "she knows all about you. You see, Denise here is my best friend. We grew up together. It was her idea to take you to this dance and to have your picture taken." Aunt Lynn's friend smiled at me. "Don't worry, Diane," she said, "your secret is safe with me. Your aunt told me about you when you first came to stay with her. She told me about how you fooled her when she came to visit and how you're staying with her until your vacation comes up. She thought you were such a cute little girl, and she was right. Since you seem to be adjusting to being a girl so well, we thought you might like to see what it's like to become a young woman." My aunt held me close and said, "I'm sorry if I upset you, Diane. If there's a problem, Denise will cut your hair and you can go back to being Denny again." Without waiting to think, I blurted out, "No, that's okay, Aunt Lynn. I'd hate to come this far and then miss the dance. I'm just worried that someone will find out about me." Denise put her arm around my shoulder. "I understand, Diane," Denise said, "but you don't need to worry. I'm not about to tell anyone unless you want me to." "Why would I want you to?" I asked, quite puzzled. The last thing I wanted was for anyone to know that I was really a boy. "Let me introduce you to my niece," Denise said. "That might help explain things." "Cheryl," Denise called, "could you come over here, please?" A very attractive girl of about 16 came walking over to us. She was wearing a short denim skirt, white stockings, a silky pink shell top, and pumps. Her hair was dark brown and wavy with a lacy white ribbon tied in it. She had on a pretty gold necklace, bracelets, and rings on several fingers. "Yes, Aunt Jane?" she asked. "What do you need?" "Cheryl," Denise said, "I'd like you to meet Diane. Diane is Lynn's niece. She's spending a few weeks here and just got her hair done for the dance tonight. Why don't you two go off and talk? You probably have a lot in common." Cheryl agreed and went to get her purse. We went to a nearby convenience store to buy soft drinks. "You're very pretty, Diane," Cheryl said. "So how do you like being a girl?" That certainly got my attention. I don't know what you mean, Cheryl," I stammered. "That's a silly question to ask." Cheryl looked as though she had made a major mistake. "I'm sorry, Diane," she said. My aunt said we had a lot in common, so I figured you must be a boy too. I couldn't believe it. This pretty girl with a fantastic shape was also a boy. You mean you're not a girl? I asked. Then why are you wearing girls' clothes and carrying a purse? Cheryl smiled at me, most likely for the same reason you're wearing them, she said. Because I like to. I thought I was the only one like this, I said. You don't look anything like a boy. I still found it hard to believe that she was a guy. I should hope not, Cheryl said with a laugh. I'd hate to think I spent so much time fixing myself up for nothing. I had a million questions for Cheryl, and I got tongue-tied trying to ask them all at once. Easy does it, Diane. She said, I'll be happy to answer your questions one at a time. Cheryl explained that when she was about 4 years old, her mom thought she'd make a cute little girl. One day, her mom took out a matching mother-daughter outfit and got Cheryl dressed. I cried when I found out what she wanted me to wear. She said, I screamed and carried on telling Mom that I wasn't about to put on any dress. Mom told me that I could scream all that I liked, but I was going to be her little girl for the day. Before it was over, I had on a cute pair of yellow, ruffled, nylon panties, a pretty little slip all trimmed in lace, white anklets with pink lace around the cuffs, and a pink dress with a matching hat. Mom had also bought me a pair of white little girl shoes with a strap across them. Next thing, I knew Mom and her new daughter were headed out for a shopping trip. I even had to carry a little purse that went with the outfit. Everyone we met thought it was so cute to see us in our mother-daughter dresses. Even people who knew me as a boy said I made a pretty little girl and fussed over me. We spent the entire day shopping with me in a dress. I had to try on every cute little dress my mom saw. She bought me several dresses that day, saying that her new daughter needed some pretty new clothes. I tried to tell her that I didn't want to be a girl, but it was no use. She wouldn't hear a word of what I had to say, and as the day wore on, I got used to wearing a dress and being called Cheryl. When we got back, Mom told me that whenever I was home, I would be her daughter Cheryl. She would decide what clothes I would wear and when. If we went anywhere, she expected me to dress and behave like a good little girl, or when I started kindergarten the following year, it would be as Cheryl. I thought it would better to be a girl around the house than in school, so I became a very good little girl. I got used to wearing dresses around the house and looked forward to shopping for pretty new dresses and underwear. I soon had a closet filled with dresses and drawers filled with colorful underwear. Mom used to let me pick out my underwear when I got ready for a bath, and I always picked the prettiest pair I could find. Mom let my hair grow long enough to put into a ponytail with bangs on my forehead. She didn't think guns and trucks were good toys for a little girl, so I got dolls and other girls' toys to play with. Soon I got so used to being a girl that it didn't bother me anymore. When we went shopping, I used to beg Mom for pretty dresses. Before long, I dressed as Cheryl whenever I was at home and even went to family get-togethers as a girl. Some of my boy cousins teased me at first, but after I showed up at a Christmas party in a pretty dress and stockings, they soon began to treat me like a girl. My family would think something was wrong if I didn't wear girls' clothes. Some things were tough to get used to, but I'm glad I did. Yes, I said, it is tough getting used to some things, but I'm having so much fun being a girl that I don't mind. Cheryl giggled. I see you're wearing a bra under your top. She said, did you have trouble getting used to the tightness of it? I've only been wearing them for a few days now. I said, I've been too excited to notice how it feels. I did have a little problem getting used to heels though. I tripped the first time I had them on. Cheryl giggled. Me too. She said, I felt like such a clumsy oaf until I got used to them. We talked for a while about getting used to being girls. I felt just like a girl comparing notes with a girlfriend on becoming young women. Cheryl, I asked hesitantly, have you ever kissed a boy? Cheryl stopped dead in her tracks. Why would you ask a question like that, Diane? She asked. I was just wondering, I said. I think that the longer I stay dressed as a girl, the more I find myself becoming a girl. Cheryl looked at me very intently for a few seconds and then said, "You're right. Every time I dress up as a girl, I have a strange feeling that I may never come back as a boy. I think it's much harder to act like a boy. You have to be careful what you say and do so that no one thinks you're a sissy. It's so much easier for me to be a girl." Cheryl sort of looked away for a little bit before she continued. "Yes," she said with a smile. "I've kissed a boy, several boys as a matter of fact. I mean, if they're going to take you out somewhere nice and spend money on you, a goodnight kiss is how a girl says thanks." "You mean you go out on dates?" I asked. "Sure," Cheryl said, laughing. "I'm old enough to date." I was amazed to think that she had actually dated as a girl. "Do you go out with other boys?" I asked. "Well, sure," she said matter-of-factly. "Guys think I'm cute and ask me out all the time. I have a lot of fun on dates, and so do the guys I go out with." "Don't your mom or your aunt mind?" I asked. "No," Cheryl said. "They treat me like a girl and take it for granted that boys ask me out. When I'm staying here, Aunt Jan helps me get ready if I have an important date. Sometimes she'll lend me one of her outfits or fix my hair real pretty. I always go on vacation with my mom as Cheryl, and I've met a lot of cute guys. If they ask me out and I think they'd be fun, I say yes. Once Mom had a date with a guy and I had a date with his son. We double dated and had a wonderful time. Mom and her date went into his house for some coffee. After our date and I stayed out on the porch with my date. I snuggled close to my date and we sat and looked at the stars. It was very romantic, and besides being a real hunk, he was a great kisser. I had a great time, and he was a perfect gentleman. His father taught him to treat girls nicely, and he made me feel like a lady. "But don't you feel a little funny kissing other boys?" I asked. Cheryl just laughed. "I'm a girl, Diane. My date is the boy. I feel like a girl kissing a boy." Cheryl looked at me and smiled. "Have you ever kissed a boy, Diane?" she asked. "Is that why you want to know how I feel when I kiss guys?" I told her all about my crush on Bob, how I had kissed him, how I felt when he kept me from tripping, and how I hoped he'd want to dance with me later. Cheryl giggled. "Yep," she said, "like it or not, you've definitely become a girl." "That's what I was afraid of, Cheryl," I said. "I don't remember when, but I know I've become a girl." It was true. I really felt like a girl with a crush on a boy. "I can help you with," when Cheryl said with a grin. "It happened when you became comfortable wearing a dress. The only question is, does it bother you to be a girl?" I thought for a moment. That's what I don't understand. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm really happy as a girl, but I'm not sure I should be. Cheryl smiled at me. "Don't worry about it, Diane," she said. "If you're happy as a girl, relax and enjoy it. Not many boys get a chance to have as much fun as we're having." I agreed. I was having so much fun as a girl that I couldn't remember ever having this much fun as a boy. I did wonder, though, if when it came time for me to be a boy again, could I do it? Cheryl said we should get back to her aunt's shop before I was late for my picture. "I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss having your picture taken in your pretty new gown," she said. We hurried back to the shop where our aunts waited for us. "Did you girls have a nice chat?" Cheryl's aunt asked. "Yes," I said. "I feel a lot better now, thank you." "It's been nice meeting you, Cheryl. Maybe we can talk again sometime," I said. "Sure," Cheryl said. "We'll see each other at the dance. Just leave a few cute boys for me to dance with, okay?" Aunt Lynn and I hurried over to the shop where I was to have my picture taken. Once there, a receptionist showed us to a room where I could get dressed and ready for the photos. Aunt Lynn laid out everything I would need. My new panties, the matching slip and bra, a pair of pantyhose, and my gown and shoes. She told me to put on as much as I could and she'd help me with the rest. She unbuttoned the back of my top and undid my bra for me before she left the room. I quickly got undressed and pulled on my new panties. They were the most beautiful pair of panties I owned. I put on my new bra, hooked it in the front, and easily adjusted it over my chest. Next, I gently pulled on my stockings just the way I had been taught. I didn't want to take a chance of putting any runs in them. I pulled on my matching slip and stepped into my gown. By the time my aunt came back to help, all I needed was to have her zip my dress up. Aunt Lynn smiled as she looked me over. "You know, Diane, you are the prettiest girl I've ever seen. I can't get over how you've changed in the past few weeks. You've gone from an ordinary little girl into a beautiful young woman," she said. "It's even more amazing when you think what I was before I became an ordinary little girl," I said with a laugh. My aunt broke into a laugh. "To tell the truth," she said, "I had completely forgotten all about that. I can't think of you as anything but a beautiful young woman." I was thrilled to hear that. I was a girl as far as Aunt Lynn was concerned, and that made me very happy. "I have a few more things for you to wear, Diane," she said. "I think they'll add to your outfit." With that, she reached into her purse and brought out the necklace and earrings she'd bought for me. After putting them on me, she took out a small makeup kit and began to make up my face. She put on a liquid foundation, then patted powder all over it. Next came a pink blush, which she said would accent my pretty cheeks. After that, she applied some light pink eyeshadow to my eyelids and mascara to my lashes. "I brought along something else to help make your dress fit better," she said with a gleam in her eye. Reaching into her purse again, she pulled out a pair of pads and placed them in the cups of my bra. "Your mom and I used these when we were young girls to help our figures a little. I saved mine in case I ever had a daughter who needed a little extra help," she said. She stepped behind me and pulled up the zipper on my gown. "Go look in that mirror," she said, smiling. I was amazed at how I looked. No one would ever suspect that there was a boy under my dress and makeup. I almost started to cry when Aunt Lynn stepped in. "Don't start crying now, young lady," she said to me. "You'll ruin your makeup." I held back my tears and hugged my aunt. "Thank you, Aunt Lynn," I said. "I really appreciate all that you've done for me." "Believe me, Diane," she said. "It was my pleasure." With that, I stepped into my heels and we walked out to have my picture taken. The photographer was a woman in her mid-20s who seemed to accept the idea that she was taking a young girl's picture. She always referred to me as Diane and never seemed to think that I might really be a boy. I had a wonderful time. The lady had me pose in several different positions, each one designed to make me appear very feminine. After the pictures, I took off my gown and lingering put my shorts and top back on. Aunt Lynn and I stopped for a bite to eat, then went home to get ready for the dance. We hurried home so that we could get our gowns on for the dance. Aunt Lynn looked beautiful in her dress, and when we stood side by side, we looked like a lovely woman with her pretty young daughter. The pads Aunt Lynn put into my bra made my dress fit just perfectly. I loved the way I looked with a young woman's bust line. Walking around in my new heels was a little tricky at first. Aunt Lynn had to remind me to lift my dress slightly to avoid tripping on it. It was just so hard for me to believe that in just several short weeks, I had gone from an ordinary little boy in jeans and t-shirts to a beautiful young woman in a pretty dress and lingerie. My hair looked fabulous and my makeup was perfect. Aunt Lynn put my makeup into my purse, along with a lace-rimmed hanky and a small bottle of her perfume that I liked. "That should do it, Diane," she said. "You're a pretty young woman off to her first dance. If you're having any doubts, tell me now. Once we leave, you're going to have to convince a lot of people that you're a girl." "I don't have any doubts, Aunt Lynn," I said with a grin. "I love this dress and my hairdo is great. I feel pretty enough to convince the world." Aunt Lynn smiled. "Yes," she said, "you'll be perfect." That evening was one I'll always remember. Bob asked me to dance shortly after I got there. He took my hand and led me to the dance floor. I put one hand in his and the other on his shoulder, just the way I had practiced. I had a wonderful time dancing with him. I seemed to melt into his arms as we danced several slow dances. I had several boys ask me to dance, and each treated me as if I were the prettiest girl they'd ever known. Cindy and I talked about how much fun we were having and how cute the guys looked. By the end of the evening, I felt just like Cinderella when she was at the ball. It was a nice feeling to know that I didn't have to worry about what would happen at midnight. I knew that when I left and went home with my aunt, I would be the same young lady I had been for the last couple of weeks. When we finally left, Aunt Lynn and I laughed all the way home. "You made quite an impression on the boys tonight, Diane," she said. "I thought they were going to kill themselves trying to get a dance with you." I was so happy I started to cry. "Thank you for giving me the nicest vacation I've ever had, Aunt Lynn. I'll never forget tonight as long as I live." "I took several pictures of you dancing this evening," Aunt Lynn said. "I can't wait till your family sees what a lovely young woman you've become." When we got back home, Aunt Lynn and I unzipped each other's gowns and began to get changed. I hated to have to change. I loved the feeling of wearing such pretty clothes. I finally managed to step out of gown and slip, unhook my bra, and pull off my panties and nylons. I slipped into a pair of peach-colored panties and a pretty matching nylon nightgown and went into the bathroom to wash off my makeup. Even without my makeup, I saw a pretty girl staring back from the mirror. I found myself wondering how I could tell my family that I didn't want to be a boy anymore. I had gotten a taste of life as a young woman, and I loved it. I finally decided to talk to them when they picked me up. Who knows? Maybe there was some way that I really could stay as Diane. I drifted off to sleep with the most wonderful memories of my first dance as a girl. Several days later, my family arrived to pick me up. They all thought that I looked like such a cute girl. "You look even better than when you left, Diane," said Linda. "Thanks," I replied. "I've had a lot of practice since then." I noticed that my twin Denise seemed to be looking at me kind of strangely. "What's wrong, Denise?" I asked. "Aren't you happy to be going on vacation?" Dennis looked at me and then said, "It's just that I don't understand why you like being a girl so much." She said, "If you ask me, boys have it much better than girls do." "No way," I blurted out. "I've been both, and I think girls have it much better than boys. Girls' clothes are so much nicer, and people are so much nicer to girls." "Yes, but guys get to run around more and climb trees and stuff. No one's telling them to settle down and act like young ladies," Denise said. "And when we go back to school, I'll have to wear a dumb uniform with a skirt. Once a month, the girls get a treat. They get to wear dresses instead of uniforms. Some treat, that is. The boys get to wear pants and jerseys. They don't have to worry about how they sit or anything. I think you're lucky to have to wear your uniform skirt, Denise." I said, "I'd love to be able to go to school in a skirt and blouse." Mom and Dad had been listening to us argue, and Dad finally interrupted us. "I'll tell you what," he said. "If your mom has no objections, we can settle this argument once and for all." Mom looked at Dad and smiled. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" she asked. "If Denny can take a vacation as Diane, why not let Denise take a vacation as Denny?" "Sounds like fun to me," squealed Denise. "I'd love to take a vacation as a boy." "Okay," Dad said. "It's settled then. We're back to having one son and 2 daughters. We'll be packing for our trip tomorrow, and Denise can pack Denny's clothes and see what being a boy is really like. She'll need to get a haircut, but I think that Lynn's friend can take care of that for us." Aunt Lynn smiled and said, "I'll call my friend Denise and we'll get things started." My aunt phoned her friend and set up an appointment for late that afternoon. In the meantime, Mom, Aunt Lynn, and Linda took Dennis to the local mart to buy her some boys' clothes. Mom didn't want her to leave the beauty shop in a pair of pink shorts and a top. When they came home, my twin was really excited. "I've got a pair of boys' underwear, a pair of guys' jeans, socks and shoes. she exclaimed. I can't wait to get changed. We've got to get going for your haircut, Mom said. How about if we all go there to watch, okay? Dad didn't really want to go, but Mom convinced him. After all, she told him, this was your idea to make her a boy. As we got ready to go, Mom had me help carry several bags to the car. All this is just some jeans and underwear, I asked, puzzled. Just help me with these packages. Diane, you'll get to see what's in them later, she said with a mischievous smile. When we got to the beauty shop, my aunt's friend Denise was waiting. The shop is normally closed by now, she said, so we won't have to worry about other customers. Now who's first? Take him first, Mom said, pointing to Denise. He's really anxious to get rid of his curls and look like a regular boy. What did she mean by who's first? I asked Mom. Who else is getting a haircut today? Mom turned to Dad. We figured that as long as we're here, you might as well get yours trimmed too, she said. But I don't want mine trimmed, Dad said. I like having it a little long. I think it looks good this way, and I thought you liked it too. It does look good, dear, and I do like it. We're just going to make it look even nicer. By the way, when we were shopping, I picked up an outfit for you too. While Denise is becoming a boy, why don't you go in the back and try it on? Why not wait till we get home? Dad said, why now? Mom smiled. I want to see how you'll look in it with your new hairstyle. Now hurry up and change, okay? Oh, Diane, she said. We bought you a new outfit too. Be a good girl and change, would you? Mom gave him a kiss and hug, and Dad's resistance melted. We took the bags and went into the back room. Shortly afterwards, he shouted for Mom. You gave me the wrong bag, he yelled. There's nothing but women's clothes in here. The women all laughed. Well, dear, said my mom, we've decided that since you're so willing to let your kids switch sexes, we'd see how you looked as a woman. With your new outfit, you'll look adorable. I can't wear these things, Dad exclaimed. What if someone sees me? No one's going to see you, dear, Mom said. The shop is closed, and anyway, it's just for now. You can change later if you like. Mom gave him another hug and kiss, and once again Dad gave in. Okay, he said, I'll go along with your little joke for now. I'll change before we're ready to leave today. Dad came back into the room with me and began to empty the bags. Mom had bought him a strapless bra, a pair of pink nylon panties, a half slip with lace around the bottom, a pink sundress with spaghetti straps, and a pair of women's sandals. When I opened my bags, I had a matching sundress, a strapless bra like Dad's, and a half slip. I couldn't believe it. Mom had bought a mother-daughter outfit for Dad and me. I couldn't wait to get dressed. Isn't this great, Dad? I exclaimed. We'll be wearing matching outfits. I'm not sure how great this is going to be, Dad said. Getting undressed, but it'll make your mom happy, and it's only for an hour or so. Dad took off his shoes and socks while I took off my shorts and top. Dad then took off his pants and shirt and stood there in his underwear, looking at the feminine clothes he was expected to wear. Sometimes I wonder if I'm too nice to your mom, he said. I never expected anything like this to come up. He slipped off his underwear and pulled on the panties. You know, he said with a grin, these don't feel all that bad. Slipping his arms into the bra straps, he was grateful that Mom had bought us bras that closed in the front. He stepped into the slip, pulled his dress on, and slipped into the sandals. Let's go, Diane, he said, smiling. Our audience awaits us. I pulled on my slip, put on my bra, slid my dress on, and stepped into my sandals. Just a minute, Dad, I said. Let me help you with something. I stepped over to him and evened out the waistline of his dress. There, I said, satisfied. Now your slip won't show. We opened the door and stepped out to show off our outfits. Very nice, Mom said. You two look very pretty in your matching dresses, just like I thought. I agree, said my aunt. Let me take a picture of you two ladies. Before my dad could protest, Aunt Lynn quickly snapped a picture of us. "Who would have thought that my brother-in-law would make such an attractive woman?" she said. "That dress is a perfect fit on him. He's really cute." Dad began to blush. "Let's not get carried away," he said. "This is just a little joke. I don't intend to wear this dress all day." "No, dear," Mom laughed. "Don't worry, nobody's going to say a thing about your pretty new dress. Denise is all done with her haircut. Do you like it?" Dad stared at the little boy in the chair. "You look just like a boy now, Denise," he said. "Why don't you put on the clothes you brought?" Denise went to get dressed and returned minutes later wearing a boy's jersey, pants, socks, and sneakers. She looked for all the world like a young boy. "Okay," Mom said to my dad. "He's all done. Now let's get your hair trimmed." Dad walked over and sat in the styling chair. "I don't know why I need a trim," he said. "It looks okay to me." Mom reassured him. "Yes, dear," she said. "Trust me, you'll look even better in a little while. Now sit back and relax. You'll be done before you know it." As Dad sat back in the chair, my aunt went to take another picture of him. I thought it was kind of odd that my aunt's friend set a tray of curlers next to him. "Here's something to read," she said, handing him a magazine. My dad picked up the magazine to look at it, and just then, Aunt Lynn took his picture. "This magazine is nothing but women's hairstyles," he said. "Is this all you have to read?" "We thought you might want to pick out a new hairdo," laughed my aunt's friend. "Something to go with your new outfit." "Oh, well," laughed my dad. "As a matter of fact, I did. I think this style would be perfect for me." Dad laughed as he pointed to a page in the book. Mom smiled at Aunt Lynn's friend and said, "Give the lady what she wants." Dad's smile vanished as Denise began to put curlers into his hair. "Wait a minute," he yelled. "What are you doing?" Mom told him to sit back and relax. He was about to get the hairstyle he had chosen. Dad tried to argue, but Mom reminded him of the pictures they had taken of him, and that seemed to take the fight out of him. Aunt Lynn's friend proceeded to put a lotion on Dad's hair, which smelled just like the perm solution Mom had used on me. I looked at Mom and in a whisper asked if Dad was getting a perm. Mom smiled at me and whispered that I was about to get a new aunt. After she was done with the curlers, Janice sat Dad under a dryer and gave him a few more women's magazines to read. Dad was beginning to get angry. "I'm not about to sit here and let you make a woman out of me," he screamed. "It's one thing for the kids to play around like this, but this is just plain silly." Dad wasn't about to give in to Mom on this one. "This is ridiculous," he screamed. "I'm a guy. I have hairy legs and a guy's face. Everyone will know I'm a guy." Mom smiled at Dad. "You're the one being silly, honey," she said with a big grin. "You're going to get a complete makeover today. When you're all done, even you won't know you're a guy. Relax. I promise you're going to have fun." Dad was really getting mad now. "There's no way I'm leaving the shop this way. I'm not about to walk out of here looking like some guy in a dress." Mom giggled. "And how do you propose to get home? I've got your clothes and car keys. You're completely dressed as a woman. How far do you think you'll get walking around looking like this? Just relax and soon you'll be able to leave with no trouble. You'll be just another woman leaving a beauty shop." Dad was still hopping mad, however. "Give me my clothes," he demanded of Mom. "I'm getting out of here before you go too far." Mom just smiled at Dad and calmly said to him, "Not only will you leave the shop dressed this way, dear, you'll be spending the next 2 weeks vacation as a lady. If not those pictures we took of you modeling your pretty new dress and having your hair done will be shown to all of our friends." There was no way Dad could argue that point. He already looked more like a woman than a man, and since he saw no way out of it, he decided to let them finish making a woman out of him. "All right," he said with a sigh, "but please don't let anyone find out about this." Mom gave him another kiss and hug and said, "Don't worry, honey. No one will ever know." Dad sat back in the chair and the work was started. He had to pull his dress up to his waist so he could have his legs waxed. Once the wax was on, they started on his face and hands. My mom plucked his eyebrows and Aunt Lynn began to give him a manicure. Dad was complaining that Mom was hurting him when she plucked his eyebrows. Aunt Lynn laughed. "Don't tell me that a big hey. Man like you can't take a little pain." Dad laughed. "Somehow I just can't think of myself as a man while I'm getting my legs waxed, Lynn." Good said. "Mom, you're going to have to forget about being a he man for a while anyway. This is a good time to start thinking of yourself as a pretty lady." "I don't have much choice in that matter," Dad said in a defeated tone. "You ladies are seeing to that. I'll try to remind myself that I'm a pretty woman, but I don't promise anything." "When you're done here," said my aunt's friend, "one look in a mirror will convince you." Mom and the other ladies kept working on Dad. Mom smeared something on his face which hardened. Aunt Lynn finished smoothing out his fingernails and began to glue false nails onto them, while Janice was smoothing and applying nail polish to his toenails. After about an hour, Mom began to remove the stuff she had put on Dad's face. His face definitely looked much smoother than it had before. "It's a good thing you don't need to shave much," Mom told him. "It'll be easier to make you look real nice." Aunt Lynn's friend began to remove the wax from Dad's legs and thighs. When it was all off, there wasn't a hair to be found. His legs were as smooth as Mom's. Mom began applying makeup to Dad's face, first a foundation, then some powder. She put pink eyeshadow on his eyelids to match his dress, accented his thin, arched eyebrows with brown eyebrow pencil, then curled his lashes and put mascara on them. After she finished his eyes, Mom brushed some blush onto Dad's cheeks, which made them stand out from the rest of his face. She used a lipstick brush to shape the outline of his lips and finished him off with coral lipstick. I couldn't believe my eyes. My dad looked every bit as pretty as Mom did when she got all dressed up. My dad was now a very pretty woman. "We're done now, honey," Mom said to Dad. "Check yourself out in a mirror and see what you think. Did we do a good job?" Dad got out of the chair and looked in a mirror on the wall. He didn't say a word for a whole minute. He just stood there looking into the mirror. "What have you done?" Dad screamed. "I look like a woman." "You're absolutely right." "Dear," said Mom, "I think you look very pretty this way. Wait till you see how much fun you'll have as a woman on our vacation." Dad just kept staring into the mirror. After a short time, I noticed he was turning his head from side to side and looking at himself from other angles. Suddenly, he broke into an enormous smile. "I didn't think it was possible," Dad said. "You've really made me into a pretty woman. I look fantastic." "See," Mom said, giving him a big hug. "I knew you'd look it when you were done. Now, do you think anyone will think you're a guy?" "Good grief, no," exclaimed Dad. "I'm not even sure I'm a guy anymore. This is really great. I'll bet I could fool anybody." Aunt Lynn looked at Dad and Mom. "He's right." "You know," she said, "he could fool anybody. He's so pretty. He makes me jealous." Aunt Lynn stopped talking for a moment and then stared at Mom and Dad for a little bit. "How about we try?" she asked Dad. "We could go out to dinner and a show tonight if you're really serious about this." Mom looked at Dad, who nodded in agreement. "Sounds nice, Lynn," he said, "but I don't think I'm really ready for an evening out as a woman. Sorry." Mom looked very disappointed. "Please give it a try, honey," Mom pleaded. "I just know we'd have a ball." "I'll admit, it does sound interesting, Lynn, but I'm not prepared for anything like that," Dad said with a grin. Besides, he laughed, "I haven't got a thing to wear." "No problem," said my aunt. "I know that Sis and I are the same size, and you look to be about the same too. I'll be happy to lend you girls a couple of outfits if you'd like." To my astonishment, Dad said, "Well, in that case, we'd love it, Lynn, thanks." My new brother and I gathered up the clothes. "Hey, Dad and I had worn in while Mom paid the stylist. He handed me his short set, panties and sandals. "Here, sis," he said gleefully. "I won't be needing these." What a day this has been, I thought to myself. My twin sister was now my brother, and my dad was now a beautiful woman. We finished up at the beauty shop and drove back to my aunt's. I still couldn't get over how pretty my dad looked. I kept staring at the pretty lady sitting next to Mom. Finally, Dad noticed my staring and smiled at me. "What's wrong, Diane?" he asked. "Is something bothering you?" "Not really, Dad," I said. "It's just going to take some getting used to. That's all." Dad thought about it for a moment. "I understand," he said. "It's going to take a little while for me to get used to wearing a dress too. Maybe you can help me get used to these clothes." I was happy to agree, but still, it seemed a little strange to think that I was going to help my dad become a woman. "I think we'll have to make a few changes here," Kid's mom said. "You can't keep referring to this pretty lady as Dad. People will think you're nuts. From now on, this woman is your Aunt Jennifer, your dad's sister. Call her Aunt Jennifer and always refer to her as she or her, just like we do for Diane." Soon we were back at Aunt Lynn's, and Mom and Dad went to pick out dresses with Aunt Lynn. Mom picked out a pretty blue dress with a pleated skirt for herself, and Dad picked out a light green dress with a lace-trimmed collar. Dad's dress was really pretty. Besides having lace around the collar, it had short, sheer puffy sleeves, a sheer top, and a short skirt. Aunt Lynn laughed at Dad's choice of a dress. "That's an awfully feminine dress, Jennifer," she said. "Are you sure you want to wear that one?" Dad smiled at her and said, "I think it'll look very pretty on me, Lynn, don't you?" Aunt Lynn looked at Mom and smiled. "I think you've got a new girlfriend, sis. Shall we show her what's involved in wearing that dress?" "Absolutely, Lynn," said Mom. "Let's get all the necessary things ready for her." "Jennifer," Mom said to Dad, "if you're going to wear such a feminine dress, you'll need some frilly things to go with it." Mom went over to Aunt Lynn's dresser and began to rummage through her lingerie. "Let's see," she said, laughing. "You'll need this, and of course these, and definitely this." Mom laid lingerie, which matched the color of Dad's dress, on the bed. There was a camisole with lace trim, a short half slip with several inches of lace at the bottom, a satin bra with a small pink bow where the cups met, a pair of nylon panties with a lace front panel, a pair of tan nylons, and a garter belt. Mom looked at Dad and smiled. "Are you still sure you want to go through with this, Jenny?" she asked. "I'll understand if you change your mind about tonight." Dad never hesitated. He scooped up the lingerie and reached for his dress. "I may need some help with the nylons, if you don't mind, Lori," he said to Mom. "We'd better get ready if we're going out." Mom and Aunt Lynn began to giggle. "This is going to be fun, Lori," said Aunt Lynn. "I can't wait to see how she looks in those clothes." Mom and Dad went to another bedroom to change with Linda, my brother Dave, and myself, wondering what Dad would look like when he was finished dressing. Aunt Lynn finished dressing first. She looked great in a silky pink dress. "What's taking Mom and Dad so long?" asked Dave. "Well, this is all new for your Aunt Jennifer. She'll need a little longer to get ready until she gets used to the clothes." After a few more minutes, the door opened and Mom came out. She looked pretty in her dress, but we were all waiting to see Dad in his dress. Mom waved her arm towards the bedroom. "I wouldn't have believed it, Lynn," said Mom, "but here she is, my new sister-in-law, Jennifer." A beautiful woman wearing a gorgeous green dress stepped out of the room next. "Jennifer," squealed Aunt Lynn, "you're beautiful. I wish I looked as good in that dress as you do." Dad smiled at my aunt and, turning to us, said, "What do you think of your dad now, kids? Did Mom make me pretty enough?" At first, no one said anything. I suppose it was because we were amazed. Dad not only looked like a woman, he sounded like one too. "You sound just like a girl, Dad," said Linda. "You look beautiful and really sound like a girl talking." "Thanks, Linda." Dad said, "I can't sound like a guy if I'm going to dress like this. By the way, "Lynn, do you have shoes to match this dress?" Aunt Lynn laughed. "You're even beginning to think like a woman. Jennifer, you've become a woman as easily as Diane became a girl. Come on, I'll find the shoes for that dress." My mom and aunts went back to Aunt Lynn's room to get shoes. When they returned, Dad was wearing a pair of heels that matched the color of his dress. He was also wearing a pair of green earrings and a ring with a pretty green stone in it. "Look at the way Dad's butt wiggles when he walks," laughed my sister Linda. "He walks as if he grew up in heels." Dad smiled at Linda and said, "Thanks, Linda. I'm glad you noticed. I want everything to look just right, including my walk." Mom gave me a few pointers on how to talk and walk like a lady. "Trust me, Jenny," said Mom. "No one will ever think of you as a man with the way you walk and talk." "I hate to interrupt," said Aunt Lynn, "but if we don't get our makeup on and leave soon, we're going to miss the movie." Mom, Dad, and Aunt Lynn went off to do their makeup. When they came back, Dad was all made up and carrying a small clutch purse. I opened it up and saw some Kleenex, a tube of lipstick, and a small bottle of perfume. "Dad," I said, "aren't you forgetting something?" Dad thought for a moment and then reached into his purse for the perfume. "Thanks for reminding me, Diane," he said as he sprayed some on his neck and arms. "Any of you girls want a spray?" he asked. "Not me," said Dave. "That stuff's for ladies." "You're right about that, Dave," Dad said, "and thanks to your mom and aunt, I have to be a lady for a few weeks. I might as well do it right." With that, Dad reached behind him and sprayed perfume on the bend of his nylon-covered legs. Dad put the perfume back in his purse and followed the other two ladies out to the car, his butt swishing from side to side as he walked. It was obvious by the way he walked, Dad was definitely a good-looking woman. After they left us, kids sat around and began to talk about the events of the day. Dave and I were amazed that Mom and Aunt Lynn had done this to Dad. Linda just laughed. She had heard Mom talking to Aunt Lynn about it on the phone several times. "It all started when Dad let you go to Aunt Lynn's as a girl, Diane," she said. "I think they decided to go through with it when he said it was okay for you and Denise to switch places. We had a great time this afternoon at the store, picking out Dad's dress," said Linda. "I had to keep from spilling the beans at the beauty shop. I didn't really think he'd go along with it, but once they took a picture of him wearing a dress and then sitting there getting his hair done, he couldn't back out. I was amazed. My mom and aunt had planned to make a woman out of Dad for some time. What really got to me, though, was how easily Dad became a woman. He picked the prettiest dress my aunt owned to wear and put on some very sexy lingerie without complaining. I thought back to when my sisters first dressed me as a girl and how happy I had been to put on girls' underwear and a dress. Like father, like son, I thought to myself. Or in this case, was it like aunt? Like niece? It was getting late, so Linda said we should get to bed. Linda and I got changed and put on our nightgowns, but Mom had forgotten to buy any boys' PJs for Dave. After a little thought, Linda brought in a small suitcase from Dad's car. "Here, Dave," she giggled. "You can wear Dad's PJs. Somehow, I don't think he'll be needing them anytime soon." I looked at my brother and sister, and we all began to laugh. "No," I said, "I don't think that our Aunt Jennifer is going to want to bother with any men's PJs after this evening." Dave took off his shirt and jeans and put on his new PJs. They didn't fit him as well as they fit Dad, but he didn't mind. He walked over to a full-length mirror and looked at himself. "I think I'm going to like being a boy," he said. "I can't wait for our vacation." We finally got to sleep that night and never even heard our aunt and parents come home. When we got up the next morning, we went to the kitchen to get breakfast, and there were Mom, Dad, and Aunt Lynn. Actually, Dad wasn't there. Instead, Aunt Jennifer was. I had forgotten about the previous evening and did a double take when I saw Dad sitting in the kitchen, legs crossed, wearing one of Aunt Lynn's nightgowns. He really looked cute in the nightgown. It was a short baby blue cotton nightgown with a lace-trimmed, ruffled hem. His legs were smooth, and he had red nail polish on his toes. His hair was not quite as pretty as it had been, but no one would mistake him for a guy. "Morning, Mom." "Morning, Aunt Lynn." "Morning, Aunt Jennifer," I said, kissing each on the cheek. Dad looked at us and smiled. "I see you decided to wear my PJs, Dave," he said to my brother. Linda giggled. "We didn't think you'd be needing them, Aunt Jennifer. And it looks as though we were right," she said. Dad looked at Linda and laughed. Aunt Lynn was sweet enough to lend me one of her nightgowns. It didn't seem right to bother with PJs. "Thanks for the PJs, Dad," my brother said. "I'm really having fun being a boy. The next couple of weeks are going to be a blast." "We can talk about the next couple of weeks later," Linda broke in. "First, tell us all about last night." "We had a good time," Dad said. "We went to dinner, did a little shopping, then saw a movie." Aunt Lynn interrupted, saying, "Some of us had more fun than others. You kids should have seen the bartender hitting on your dad." "You mean some guy was hitting on Dad?" I asked in amazement. "What happened, Aunt Lynn?" Mom and Aunt Lynn started to laugh. "We had to wait at the bar for a table, and the bartender seemed quite taken with your dad," said Aunt Lynn. Dad broke into the conversation, saying, "Nothing happened. We talked for a little while before we got a table." Dad looked at Mom and Aunt Lynn and laughed. "He was a perfect gentleman." Aunt Lynn thought for a moment, smiled and said, "And you, Jennifer, were a perfect lady." "How could you do that, Dad?" I asked. "How could you let another guy hit on you?" I was very confused. What was happening to my dad? "Just a minute, young lady," Mom said. "I seem to remember hearing about a girl named Diane and a boy named Bob." "What about Diane's kissing Bob and all of the boys she danced with at the party?" "I guess you're right, Mom," I said. "I sort of forgot about that." "Your Aunt Jennifer is a pretty lady," said Aunt Lynn. "Guys are going to be attracted to her. She's going to have to get used to that, and she'll need your understanding." "I'm sorry, Dad," I said. "I wasn't thinking." "That's okay, honey," Dad said. "I understand." Dad put his arm around me as he continued. "Your mom and I had a talk with Aunt Lynn last night, sweetie, and we've decided to change things slightly for you and Dave." "Does that mean I have to go on vacation as a girl, Dad?" said Dave, breaking into tears. Dad pulled Dave and I close to him as he explained. "You can still spend your vacation as a girl," he said to me. "Dave here will still get to see what it's like to be a boy. It's just that since people where we're going know we have a daughter named Denise and a son named Denny, you two will have to use each other's real names." Mom came over to us and said, "So, if it's okay with you and Diane, we'd like you two to switch places for a while." Dave and I looked at each other for a moment. "I don't mind being Denny. Do you mind being called Denise?" he asked me. "Heck no," I quickly replied. "I still get to be a girl, and you can be a boy." "One other thing," Dad said to me. "You'll be sharing a room with Linda on vacation. Since there are only 3 bedrooms, you girls will have to share one." "That's fine with me, Dad," I said. I was so happy to be able to spend my vacation as a girl. I would have agreed to anything. After breakfast, we went to our rooms to get ready to leave. Mom came to my room and said she wanted to pick out something nice for her new daughter to wear home. She searched around until she found my denim miniskirt, a white tank top, and a pair of low-heeled white pumps. I put on a pair of white pantyhose, my bra, slip, and top. I pulled on my skirt, and Mom zipped it up in the back. Mom went through my jewelry until she found a pair of white earrings for me to wear. I slipped into my pumps and followed her out of the room. "Wait until you see how pretty Denise looks," Jennifer, Mom said to my dad. "She's really become a pretty young lady." As I walked into the living room, I knew I had been set up by Mom. There stood Dad with an identical outfit on. "You certainly look pretty, Dad," I laughed. "I really love that outfit you're wearing." Mom thought, that since we looked so nice in our sundresses, we should have another matching outfit. Dad said, Aunt Lynn said that you look so nice in this outfit, so while we were out last night, I bought one for me. I thought back to our first mother-daughter outfits in the beauty shop and how upset Dad had been at that time. It seemed so long ago. I think it's great, Dad. I said, I always did enjoy having matching outfits. We said our goodbyes to Aunt Lynn, loaded our car, and drove home to pack for our vacation. Once we got inside, Mom called Denny and me to talk to us again. Dad and I have a surprise for you two, she said. We've decided that since Denny's hair won't be long enough when school starts, he'll go back to school as Denny, and you'll be Denise. Dad looked at us for our reaction. It took a moment for Mom's surprise to sink in. Are you guys serious? Cried Denny. I can go back to school as a boy. My brother and I just stood there with our jaws wide open. And I get to wear pretty clothes to school, I asked. Absolutely, Dad said, looking at me. Denny and you will switch bedrooms as of today. You'll wear girls' clothes on vacation and stay a girl throughout the school year. As for you, Denny, Mom said to my brother, you'll be expected to do the same. As of now, you're a boy and we'll expect you to dress and act like one at all times. You two have been in the same classes since you started school, Dad said to us. You know each other's friends and what the other has done. It should be easy for you to be each other for a while. Of course, Mom said to me. You'll have to wear a uniform to school, and if anything special takes place at school, you'll have to attend as a girl. Is that okay with you, Denise? Sure, Mom, I said, delighted. I couldn't believe it. I was going back to school as a girl. It's okay with me too. Mom, Denny told her, actually it's great. With that settled, we hurried to each other's rooms to pack. I couldn't believe my luck. A whole room full of girls' clothes, and they were mine. I had a new bedroom with pink walls, a canopy bed with pink sheets on it, and a closet filled with skirts and dresses. My dresser had a collection of pretty dresser dolls on it, and my windows had ruffled white curtains on them. I was ecstatic. I was in a girl's bedroom filled with pretty clothes, and it was all mine. Denny was just as happy with my old room. I had model planes and cars and other boy-type stuff, but he could have it all. I just wanted to try on all of my new clothes. Linda came into my room and greeted me with an enthusiastic, "Hi, I hear you're my new little sister." I broke into a big grin. "That's right," I said, "for a whole year. Can you believe it?" "If you need any help, sis," she said while giving me a hug, "just let me know, okay?" "Thanks, Linda," I said. "I really appreciate it." Linda just laughed. "No sweat, Denise," she said. "That's what sisters do for each other." We packed all of our things and piled into the car for the several hours drive to our vacation. When we arrived, Linda and I began to unpack. After we were done, Linda asked me about staying with Aunt Lynn. She wanted to know all about how I felt wearing my bathing suit outside, if I ever thought of wearing a two-piece suit, and what it was like when I kissed Bob. "Slow down, Linda," I said. "Give me a chance to answer." I was a little afraid when I first wore my suit outside, I told her, but the other girls and Aunt Lynn made me feel better. I'd love to see what I'd look like in a two-piece bathing suit, and I only kissed him on the cheek. Linda looked at me and said with a sly smile, "I'll let you try on my two-piece suit if you're not afraid to," she said. "I've just spent the last couple of weeks as a girl," I said. "I've had my hair done in a beauty shop, danced with boys, and had my picture taken as a girl. I'm not afraid of a bathing suit." Linda smiled at me. "Okay, little sister, we'll see," she said. She went to her dresser and removed a pretty yellow two-piece bathing suit. "Here you go, sis," she said, handing it to me. "Put it on." I quickly undressed and pulled on the bottoms. They felt almost as silky as my panties did. Linda fastened the top on the back and stepped back to look me over. "You really do make a cute girl, Denise," she said. "I'm going to like having you as my sister. Let's show the others how you look." The rest of the family thought I looked cute in Linda's bathing suit. Mom looked at me and then at Dad. "That reminds me. Jenny," she said to Dad, "we have a little shopping to do today." "We need to get you a bathing suit too." Dad smiles at Mom. I can't believe it, but I agreed. I can hardly wait to see myself in a bikini. I hurried back to my room and got out of Linda's suit. I quickly pulled on a pair of white panties, white shorts, a yellow top, and my sandals. I couldn't wait to see how my dad would look in a woman's bathing suit. I hoped he'd be just as pretty as I imagined. We went to a department store in a local mall and headed straight for the ladies' swimwear department. Mom and Dad set about the task of finding just the right swimsuit for Dad. Denny went over to check out the sporting goods while Linda and I checked out two-piece styles we liked. "What do you think of this one, Jenny?" Mom said to Dad. She held up a blue, one-piece suit with a skirt attached to it. "I think it looks too much like Dennis's dad said. I was hoping for something a little more feminine." He held one up for Mom to see. "How about this one, Lori?" he asked Mom. It was a two-piece pink suit with a bottom that tied on either side. "I don't think it's you," Jenny Mom said, "but try it on and see for yourself." "I think this one's nice too," Dad said. He held up a one-piece, lilac-colored suit that was cut high at the legs and low at the bust line. "Try it on, Jenny." Mom said, "I'd like to see you in that one." Dad took both suits and went into the ladies' dressing room. A few minutes later, he came out wearing the two-piece suit. "It's nice, Aunt Jennifer," Linda said, "but you haven't got the curves for it." Linda was right. Dad just didn't have the figure that bathing suit required. Dad went back into the dressing room and returned wearing the once-piece suit he'd picked out. "You know," Mom said with the same smile I'd seen in the beauty shop, "I think that looks good on you." Linda and I looked at Dad. The material of the bathing suit seemed to pull in his waist and gave him a cute-looking butt. If he only had a bust line, the suit would be perfect. "You girls look around." Mom said, "I'll be right back. I have another errand to run." Dad went back to change and came out in his skirt and top. "Come with me, girls," he said to Linda and me. "I want to pick up a few things while we're waiting." Dad headed straight for the lingerie department, where he began looking over matching lingerie sets. "I need a few things," he laughed. "I can't keep borrowing stuff from your mother." Dad was like a kid in a candy shop. Into the shopping cart went 3 sets of matching lingerie, one pink, one yellow, and one black. Next came several bras and a panty girdle. Dad spotted the garter belts and decided that he liked Aunt Lynn so much, he just had to get one of his own. After this, we went to the hosiery department, where Dad picked out several sets of stockings in white, tan, and of course, black. He also got several pairs of pantyhose for when he didn't want to bother with nylons and garter belts. Next came makeup. Dad chose several different shades of lipstick and eyeshadow. He picked out mascara, which promised to give him beautiful long lashes, foundation and blush. Just when Linda and I thought he was done, the dress department was next. Dad browsed through several racks of dresses, choosing several pretty dresses for casual wear before he came to a dress he adored. It was the same type of dress he had worn at Aunt Lynn's, a sheer top, pleated skirt, and lace trim. Dad searched the rack and finally pulled one out. "Here's one in my size," he yelled. We'd never seen Dad this excited before. Dad took the dress and hurried off to try it on. By now, Mom and Denny had caught up with us. "Where's Jenny?" asked Mom. Linda and I both broke into a fit of giggles. "Over there?" Linda said as she pointed to the dressing room. Mom looked at the cart and laughed. "Seems like she's been a busy lady." Dad came out of the dressing room, modeling the dress he had selected. "Hi, Lori," he called to Mom. "What do you think?" "It's perfect, Denny," Mom said. "You'll look great in that dress." Dad smiled. "Just what I thought," he said as he turned to change. We finally paid for all of Dad's new clothes and headed home. Mom told us kids to change into something a little dressier so we could go out to dinner. Linda put on a pretty pink and white skirt and top set, while I selected a blue and white striped sailor dress. I thought my dress was really nice. It had a blue and white polka dot skirt, a white top trimmed in blue, and a blue scarf. I got out a full slip, white stockings, and my white pumps. I got dressed, stepped into my pumps, and fixed my hair into a ponytail held in place by a blue scarf. I gave myself a quick spray of heaven-sent perfume and waited for Linda. Mom, Dad, and Denny were waiting for us downstairs. Dad looked really nice in a white and yellow striped cotton dress of Mom's. He had on a pair of yellow pumps and carried a yellow purse. "You look great, Dad," Linda said to him. "I think that dress looks better on you than it does on Mom." Mom pretended to be offended. "Thanks a lot." "Thanks a lot," Mom said with a laugh. "It does me loads of good to know my husband looks better in my clothes than I do." "It's just that he looks better in yellow, Mom," Linda explained. "I'm sure you have other outfits that you look better in than Dad does." Mom smiled. "I certainly hope so," she laughed. When we arrived, we ran into an older couple who lived in the area and had known us for a few years. Mom explained that Dad had to go out of town on a business trip and introduced the other couple to Aunt Jennifer. Dad turned on the charm and soon was carrying on a conversation with Mom and the other couple. Our friends were paying Linda and me all kinds of compliments, saying that they couldn't get over how pretty we were getting to be. They told Denny that he was getting to be a handsome young man and would surely have the girls fighting over him. Even though Denny and I had to keep from laughing, we were happy to be accepted as brother and sister. After a little while, Dad and I excused ourselves to use the ladies' room. When I finished, I was a little surprised to see Dad standing in front of the mirror, brushing his hair and fixing his makeup. He was really getting into being a woman. Returning to our table, we found that Dad had become the topic of conversation. "I was just telling Lori how pretty I thought you looked, Jennifer," the other lady said to Dad. "You dress so well and carry yourself beautifully." Her husband interrupted her, saying, "My wife tends to beat around the bush, Jenny. What she really wants to know is if you're dating anyone." Dad was taken by surprise with the man's question. Dad tried to be as gracious as possible under the circumstances. "No, as a matter of fact, I'm not," he said, a little worried about such personal questions. "You mean a pretty girl like you isn't married or engaged yet?" the lady said to Dad. Dad smiled. "I guess the right guy hasn't come around yet," he replied, unsure of where the conversation was going. "If it's okay with you," the lady said, "we have a nephew who's in town for a few days. Maybe he could escort you for an evening. He's about your age, single and very nice." Dad seemed to be getting a little nervous now. "That's very sweet of you," said Dad, trying to politely decline. "I'm sure he's quite nice, but I promised Lori and the kids I'd spend some time sightseeing with them. I don't get to see them that much." Dad didn't notice, but Mom was smiling the same way she'd smiled at the beauty shop. I didn't think she was going to be much help to Dad. "Don't worry, Jenny," she said, smiling ever so sweetly at Dad. "We won't be doing any sightseeing in the evenings. You'll have plenty of free time." Smiling Mom wrote down the phone number of our cottage and handed it to the other woman. "Remember, Jenny," she said to Dad, "you're here to relax and enjoy yourself." The other lady smiled, took our phone number and tucked it into her purse. "I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time," she said to Dad. "My nephew is really very sweet." As we left for home later that evening, Dad turned to Mom. "Are you nuts?" he asked. "I can't go on a date with another guy." Mom didn't seem in the least upset. "Relax, Jennifer," she said in a soothing voice. "Guys rarely call for blind dates. I was just having fun with you." From the look on Dad's face, I could see he didn't think it was all that funny. Let's hope he doesn't call, Dad said, obviously worried. I don't know what I'll do if he does. Mom began to laugh. She turned to Dad and said, you might try going out with him. After all, you did say he sounded nice. Dad just glared at her and didn't say another word all the way home. When we got home, Linda and I went to our room to get ready for bed. Linda unzipped my dress and went to take her bath. By the time I finished bathing, she had her nightgown on and was getting her curlers ready. Want some help? I asked. How about if we set each other's hair? Linda seemed to like my suggestion. You mean you know how to set hair? She asked. Sure, I replied. Aunt Lynn taught me when I was there. I used to set mine all the time. Linda smiled and hugged me. I think I'm going to enjoy having you as my little sister, she said. We set each other's hair and went to bed. Linda had on a short, blue, sleeveless nightgown, and I wore my yellow baby doll pajamas. The next morning, we had breakfast and began to get ready for the beach. I put on my pink bathing suit and Linda wore her yellow one. Denny was thrilled to wear a pair of my old trunks with army figures on them. Mom was wearing a pretty two-piece suit, and Dad was pulling on his pretty, lilac-colored suit. It looked great on him, but he still needed to do something about his lack of a bust line. What are we going to do about this? Lori, Dad said to Mom, pulling at the top of his suit, I can't wear a padded bra like I do with my other clothes. He seemed quite upset that he couldn't fill out his suit. I've got just what you need, Jenny, Mom said. Reaching into the closet, she pulled out a small box and removed 2 very lifelike breasts. I got these while you were picking out lingerie, she said. They glue on and look and feel like the real thing. Dad was amazed. I hope that glue is waterproof, he said. I want to get some swimming in. Don't worry your pretty little head about it, Jenny, Mom said. Once this glue goes on, you need nail polish remover to get it off. Mom had Dad pull down the top of his bathing suit. I see you've shaved the hair off your chest, she said. Dad broke into a big grin. Yep, he said, striking a pose to show off his legs, and I shaved my legs too. Mom glued Dad's new chest on and helped the glue dry with the help of a hairdryer. That should do it, Jenny, she said when finished. You can pull your top up now. Before pulling up his top, Dad walked over to the full-length mirror and began to twist and turn to see how he looked with breasts. When he did pull up his top, and the effect was unbelievable. The suit shaped him and gave him a great figure. His new boobs peeked out over the top of his suit. His waist was several inches smaller than it had been, and his butt stuck out prominently. My dad had become a very attractive woman. Dad stared at himself in the mirror. I can't believe it, he said. I really look like a woman. Worse yet, I think I like the way I look. Dad seemed very confused and upset. If this keeps up, I don't know if I'll be able to go back to being a guy. Mom's devious little smile returned. That's entirely up to you, Jennifer, she said to Dad. I could get used to seeing you as a pretty woman. I think we could have a lot of fun as 2 women. Dad just looked at her, unsure of how to feel. Relax, honey, Mom said to him. There's plenty of time to sort your feelings out. Let's have some fun first, okay? Dad shrugged his shoulders, put on his robe and said, You're right, dear. Let's see how I make out on the beach. The beach was a short walk from the cottage, and Dad turned many a guy's head along the way. We spent several hours swimming and sunning ourselves at the beach, with several guys stopping to talk to Mom and Aunt Jennifer. Dad appeared to be having the time of his life. I wasn't sure if we'd be able to get him to leave. When we finally got home, the phone was ringing. Mom answered and began to smile. Turning to Dad, she said, Jenny, phone call for you. Dad was looking worried when he took the phone from Mom. He answered and began looking to Mom for help. Mom, however, wasn't offering any. She just laughed and said, Go. After a short while, Dad finally said, That sounds very nice, Mike. Here's where I'm staying. I'll see you at 7. Dad hung up the phone and looked at Mom. I've got a date tonight, he said, looking quite upset. What am I supposed to do now? Mom looked at him and smiled. You've got to start getting ready for your date, Jenny. Jenny, she said. You want to look your best tonight, don't you? Dad just stared at her. But I'm going on a date with another guy, he said. Why doesn't that seem to bother you? Mom answered in a matter-of-fact tone. Because I see you as a lovely woman that any man would be proud to be seen with, she said. But Lori, Dad exclaimed. I'm a guy. Your husband, remember? This seemed funny to Mom. You're standing there in a woman's bathing suit which you picked out, wearing a set of fake breasts you were thrilled with a few hours ago. You bought yourself several sets of pretty lingerie and a dress. Tell me again that you're a guy. Mom said, laughing. But I was just having fun. Dad said, I never thought I'd have to go on dates as a woman. I told you when we started that I wanted you to relax and see how much fun being a woman could be. Mom told him. Go take a bath, she said. We'll choose your outfit when you're done. Dad was trapped and he knew it. My Aunt Jennifer was going on her first date. Dad came out of the bathroom wearing Mom's floral bathrobe. He still had his fake breasts on and without a bra that flopped as if they were real. I followed him into the bedroom to see what he was going to wear on his date. I thought you'd like to make a good impression, Mom said to him, so I set out your new dress and some matching lingerie. It was just like that day at Aunt Lynn's. Mom set out the dress he had just bought, and next to it was a pair of panties, a bra, slip, camisole, and a pair of pantyhose. Dad just sighed as he sat down and pulled on his panties and his slip. Removing his robe, he slipped his arms into the straps of his bra and adjusted his breasts as Mom fastened it in the back. He looked at the pantyhose and said, No, they just won't do. He went to his drawer and pulled out a garter belt which matched the rest of his lingerie and a pair of nylons. He gently rolled the nylons up his legs and fastened them to his garters. He removed his dress from the hanger and slipped it over his head. He added a strand of pearls Mom set out for him and matching earrings. Where's your curling brush, Lori? He asked Mom. I want to put a little more curl into my hair this time. Dad was looking in the mirror and fluffing his hair with his fingers. I'll get it for you, Jenny, Mom said as she pulled her electric curling brush from the closet. I'm glad to see you're beginning to relax. I'm glad you picked this dress for me. Lori, Dad said as he stepped into his matching pumps. I want to look extra pretty and feminine so Mike doesn't suspect that I'm a guy. Trust me. Jenny, Mom said to Dad as he curled his hair. Your date is going to see a very feminine and attractive woman. Dad began to loosen up and smile. That's why I wanted to wear nylons instead of pantyhose. They make me feel more like a woman. Dad's hair looked great when he finished curling it. He insisted on doing his own makeup, and when he was done, he looked in the mirror and smiled. You're going to be a real heartbreaker, Jenny, said Mom. I'll bet you'd be swamped with men wanting to date you. Dad really smiled at that. I was beginning to wonder if my dad would ever come back or if Aunt Jennifer would stay forever. Dad's date picked him up right on time, and it was kind of neat to see my dad wearing a pretty dress and being escorted to his date's car. Dad stood there smiling as Mike opened the door for him. Dad smiled and thanked Mike, smoothed his skirt, and slid into the car. As they drove off, I found myself wishing I could have a guy treat me the way Mike was treating Dad. Mom broke through my dreams by telling Linda, Denny and me to get dressed as she wanted to pick up a few things from the store. I took off my bathing suit and put on a pair of panties, a bra, a half slip, and a pink sleeveless cotton dress. I stepped into my sandals and brushed my hair. Mom drove us back to the mall we had been at that afternoon. I wanted to get some pretty earrings I saw for you girls, Mom said. Since Linda has pierced ears, I thought we'd get yours pierced too, Denise. That way, you girls could trade off earrings. I was too thrilled to speak. I was going to get my ears pierced, Mom told me she'd treat me like a girl, and she was doing it. When we got to the jewelry store, Mom let Linda and me pick out several pairs of earrings. When the woman working in the store asked if she could help us, Mom gave me a nudge towards a seat and said she wanted to get her daughter's ears pierced. At first, it was a little painful, but I put up with it to see how pretty my new gold studs looked. I loved it. I really felt like a pretty girl. After some more shopping in which Mom bought a beautiful black dress for Dad, we returned home. Mike's car was sitting in the driveway, and we saw him and Dad sitting on the porch, laughing and sipping cold drinks. As we approached, Dad introduced us all to his date. Mike seemed very polite and greeted all of us, but quickly returned his attention to Dad. He and Dad seemed oblivious to the rest of us. After about an hour, Mike said that he had a great time, but that he did have to leave. Dad turned to us and said, "I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to walk Mike to his car." Even Mom seemed stunned by this, but she smiled and said, "Let's give Aunt Jenny a little privacy, kids." As she walked into the house with us kids tagging behind, inside we glanced back to see Dad move closer to Mike. "Thanks for a lovely evening, Mike," he said. "I really had a nice time." "So did I, Jenny," he said, never taking his eyes off Dad. Mike moved close to Dad and then bent over and kissed him. I thought for sure Dad would do something, and I was right. I was also wrong. Instead of Dad putting up a fuss or moving away, he put his arms around Mike's neck and returned the kiss. It seemed like hours instead of just moments, but eventually Mike and Dad broke off their kiss. Dad looked up at Mike and smiled. "That was nice," he said in a shy voice. "Thank you." Mike smiled back at Dad and pulled him close for a hug. Not only didn't Dad resist, he smiled and gazed up into Mike's eyes. Mike and Dad finally separated and began walking towards his car. As they approached the car, they stopped and stared at each other before each broke into a smile. This time Dad moved close to Mike, put his arms around Mike's neck and gave him a kiss. After they kissed, I heard Dad say, "I'd love to." "See you then, Mike?" Mike smiled back at Dad, then got into his car and drove off. Dad walked back to the cottage, looking for all the world like a woman in love. When he got inside, he went into the bedroom with Mom. I stayed close by so I could hear what they were saying. "What a night," Dad said to Mom. "I had a great time. Thanks for fixing me up with him, Lori." I could tell by Dad's voice that he was in an extremely good mood. "What a kiss," Mom said, laughing. "What happened to? I'm a guy, remember from earlier this afternoon." Dad just laughed. "What can I say? You convinced me that I was an attractive woman." Mom laughed. "From what I saw tonight," she said, "you were really quite convinced. I can't believe you were kissing and hugging him." "It's like Denise said about Bob. I heard Dad tell Mom. It just seemed like the right thing to do." "After all, you want me to be a woman, and he is so very cute." Mom interrupted him. "I wanted to show you how much fun being a woman can be," she said. "I'm not sure I want you to actually be a woman. I'm beginning to wonder if I'll ever see my husband again," Mom said. I was shocked to hear Dad say, "Definitely not for the next 2 weeks. Lori, would you mind?" Mom thought for a second. "It's okay, Jenny," Mom said. "After all, you do make a great girlfriend." "Mike seems to think so," replied Dad. "We made another date for tomorrow. Mike's going to teach me how to play tennis." "I didn't think you'd mind if I borrowed your tennis dress." Dad was really getting into being a woman. He seemed to be having as much fun as I was. It was getting late, so I went upstairs to get ready for bed. I took a quick bath and put my baby doll pajamas on again. Linda and I set each other's hair while we talked about Dad and me. Linda wondered how serious Dad and I were about being girls. I told her what I had heard Mom and Dad talk about, and she just stared at me. "I think we'd better get used to Aunt Jennifer," she said quietly. It sounds like Dad's having too much fun as a girl to want to ever be a guy again." "What would you think," I asked hesitantly, "if I were to be your sister forever?" Linda was quiet for a few seconds. "I'm not really sure, Denise," she said. "I guess it's really up to you. After all, you've done such a good job at becoming a girl. It's hard to think of you as a boy." Linda looked at me in my baby doll PJs with curlers in my long hair and laughed. "You make such a pretty girl. It would sort of be a waste for you to be a boy," she said. "Thanks, Linda," I said, giving her a hug. "You're the sweetest big sister a girl could ever hope for." We finished setting our hair and climbed into bed. Linda had promised to let me wear one of her two-piece bathing suits to the beach the next day, and I couldn't wait. The next morning at breakfast, I was surprised to see Dad sitting there in a short pink nightgown with a sheer robe to match his nightgown. The nightgown was low-cut, and even without his new breasts, Dad looked very feminine. The sides of the neckline were trimmed with a wide layer of lace, as were the ends of the sleeves of his robe. "You look terrific, Dad," I said, kissing him on the cheek. "I didn't know Mom had a nightgown like that." "I don't," Mom said, coming up behind Dad. "It was a present I bought for him," she said as she hugged him. "I wanted to make him forget all about being a guy for a while, and I thought this would help. By the way, kids," Dad said to us, "until we get back home, would you please not call me Dad anymore? I'd appreciate it if I could be your aunt." Denny and I looked at Linda and smiled. What the heck? We thought to ourselves, if he wants to be treated like a woman, it's okay with us. We both hugged him. "Sure, Aunt Jennifer," Denny said. "I don't mind." "How about it, girls? Do you mind?" Linda and I gave Aunt Jennifer a big hug and kiss. "We love you, Aunt Jennifer," I said to her. "You're the prettiest aunt any girl could want." Linda said, "Okay, if Denise and I borrow some of your clothes." Aunt Jenny just laughed. "You girls are too young to wear some of my lingerie," she said, smiling at us. "Help yourself to any of the everyday stuff, though." "Hurry up and eat, kids," Mom said. "It looks like a day for the beach." After we ate, Linda and I hurried to our room to get dressed. Linda let me wear the pretty yellow two-piece suit she had been wearing while she wore a bright pink suit. Aunt Jenny was just coming out of his room when we got downstairs. She was wearing a pretty white tennis dress with a short pleated skirt and the cutest ruffled panties. Her legs looked great in a pair of white ankle socks and white tennis shoes. Her hair was not as curly as last night. Instead, it had a slight wave to it, and Aunt Jenny had put a white lace ribbon in it. "That really looks great on you, Aunt Jennifer," Linda said. "I'll bet you'll drive Mike crazy." "I hope so," Aunt Jenny said. "I really want him to think I'm pretty." She was looking into a full-length mirror and turning from side to side to make sure everything was perfect. Mike arrived just as we were leaving for the beach. He took one look at Aunt Jenny and said, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met, Jenny." Aunt Jenny began to blush. "Thank you, Mike," she said, giving him a smile that could melt ice. "You're the best-looking guy I've ever gone out with." Well, at least that's not a lie, I thought to myself. Linda, Denny and I left for the beach, and Aunt Jenny and Mike left to learn tennis. Linda and I spread suntan lotions on each other's backs and proceeded to work on our tans. "Let me undo the back of your top, Denise," she said. "Then slip your arms out and lay on your stomach. You'll end up with a nice tan without strap lines." Linda undid my top and I slipped out my arms. This is going to look great with my pink sundress, I thought. If only Bob were here to see how nice I look in it. After a few hours of tanning, Linda and I fixed our tops and went looking for Denny. We found him with several other kids, sitting quite close to a pretty blonde-haired girl. We pried him away from his friends and decided to take a walk to the tennis courts where Aunt Jenny was getting lessons. She was standing there looking so pretty with Mike right behind her. He was holding her arm to show how to swing the racket, and she was loving it. After a short while, Mike took her by the arm and turned her to face him. We could see them laughing and smiling at each other. Aunt Jenny stopped laughing and put her arms around his waist. Mike pulled her close to him and gave her a light kiss on the lips. Aunt Jenny moved her arms around his neck and pulled his face down to hers. She flashed him her ice-melting smile and gave him a long, lingering kiss on his lips. They moved off the court and sat on a bench under a tree, smiling and kissing. We figured we'd better get out of there so as not to make her uncomfortable. We walked back to the cottage and changed out of our bathing suits. I slipped on a pair of white panties, my slip, and a blue summer dress. Mike dropped off Aunt Jennifer and stopped in to talk. Mike was a really cute guy. It was easy to see why Aunt Jennifer could enjoy his company. They sat on the couch with Aunt Jenny right next to him. Mike explained that he was leaving the next day, but wanted to say goodbye and thank us for allowing Aunt Jenny time to spend with him. We all sat and talked until Mom said it was time for the kids to go to bed. Mike wished us all a good night and said it was time for him to go too. Aunt Jenny smiled and said she'd walk him to his car. Linda, Denny, and I raced to our room and hurried to the window without turning on any lights. We wanted to watch Aunt Jenny and Mike say goodbye one more time. Mike had his arm around Aunt Jenny all the way to his car. At his car, they turned to face each other. Aunt Jenny lifted her face to accept a kiss and began to run her hands through Mike's hair. They stayed in this embrace for several minutes before they finally stopped kissing and stood there looking at each other. Mike finally kissed her one last time, then got into his car and left. Aunt Jenny stood staring down the street for several minutes before returning to the house. Linda hurriedly turned on our room light, and Denny went to his room so that no one would know we were watching. We took our baths, set each other's hair, and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Mom and Aunt Jenny were waiting in the kitchen when we awoke. Mom was wearing a pretty cotton nightgown, and Aunt Jenny had on her sheer robe and pretty pink nightgown. "Morning, kids," said Aunt Jenny. "How's everyone today?" Denny smiled at Aunt Jenny and said, "Great. How are you today, Aunt Jenny?" She smiled and said, "Well, today will be a little less fun without Mike around, but I'm looking forward to finishing out my vacation as a woman." Mom gave her a kiss on the cheek, and "We're looking forward to helping you, Jenny," she said. The rest of our vacation went quickly. Aunt Jenny had a wonderful time going shopping, sunbathing, and even out to a fancy restaurant wearing her black dress. Soon, however, it was time to return home, and Aunt Jenny reluctantly let Mom cut her hair and go back to being our dad. "I guess you've got yourself some nice new clothes, Lori," Dad said to Mom. "Even though I enjoyed wearing them, I think we wasted our money buying those fake breasts." "I've been thinking, dear," Mom said. "I do like those clothes, but I don't need all of them, and I certainly don't need those breasts. We could buy you a nice wig, and if you wouldn't mind, you could spend time as Jenny at home." Dad grabbed Mom and gave her a great big hug. "I'd love to," he said. "I've never had so much fun." Dad squeezed Mom so hard I thought she'd burst. "Great," Mom said to him. "Now take off that men's underwear and get a pair of panties on Jennifer." Dad practically ran to the bedroom. He went through the luggage we brought back and picked out a pair of lacy pink panties. "These look perfect," said Dad, smiling at Mom. "You're the sweetest wife a girl could ever want." Dad went off to change, and Denny and I went off to check out our new bedrooms. I was in heaven. I took my time checking out every single drawer. One drawer was filled with panties. There were pink, blue, yellow, green, and tan ones. Just about every color you could get a pair of panties in. There were some plain ones and a number of fancy ones with lace trim. I couldn't wait to wear them. Another drawer was filled with socks. There were come for everyday wear, and a few pairs of tights and pantyhose with pretty patterns for dress-up use. I even had a small drawer filled with white and pink full and half slips. I found the pretty slip that I wore to make my dress flare out and tried it on over my shorts. I was in heaven. I opened up my walk-in closet and began admiring the pretty dresses, skirts, and slacks hanging there. Even the slacks looked so very pretty and feminine. Best of all was that for the whole school year, this is how I would dress. All day, every day, for the first time that I could remember, I was looking forward to going back to school. Vacation was over, and I had to return to school in the morning. I was excited and a little afraid to be going back to school as Denise. Even with all the time I had spent as a girl, I was still a little worried about whether I could really make people think I was Denise. I took my bath and set my hair so that it would look really pretty for school. I had to wear a uniform, so I didn't have to worry about what outfit I would wear. I slipped into a yellow nylon nightgown and drifted off to sleep. Before I knew it, Linda was in my room waking me up to get ready for school. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Linda said cheerfully. "Time to get ready for your first day as a schoolgirl." I crawled out of bed, and after brushing my teeth and taking out my curlers, I began to get dressed. My uniform consisted of a white or light blue blouse, a solid blue pleated skirt or jumper, white or blue knee socks, and a blue blazer. I pulled off my nightgown and put on a pair of white knee socks, a white half slip, and one of my new bras. I buttoned my blouse and tucked it into my skirt. I stepped into a pair of tan loafers, brushed out my hair, grabbed my purse and blazer, and went down to have breakfast. "Good morning, Denise," said Mom. "Excited about going back to school?" she asked as she ran her fingers through my long hair. "Morning, Mom," I answered. "Yes, I am excited but still a little worried." "Don't worry, Denise," said Denny. "You look just like I did when I wore that outfit. No one's going to know we switched places. It's going to fun." As Denise, my sister, was never an early riser, yet here was Denny awake and completely dressed for school. "Don't worry about how much fun you're going to have, young man," Dad said, taking a playful swing at him. "Just pay attention and keep your grades up." We finished breakfast and left to catch the bus for school. I felt my slip brush against my legs as I walked and felt that everyone could see my bra under my blouse. At the bus stop, Denny went over to talk to the boys I used to hang around with, and I found myself in a group of girls. No one looked at me twice. To the other girls, I was Denise. Soon I found myself in the midst of telling about my summer vacation, spending time with Aunt Lynn, and telling all about the cute guy I met. We talked all the way to school. The girls told me all about their summer and what they thought middle school would be like for us. One girl, Mary, was saying how she hoped there'd be more cute guys in this new school, and I found myself hoping the same thing. Well, I thought to myself, I'm a girl now, so why shouldn't I think about guys? The talk continued all the way into our classroom until the teacher asked us to quiet down. Roll was called, and I raised my hand when they called Denise Michaels. I was officially a schoolgirl now. I only had to remind myself once to carry my books up against my chest, like the other girls did. I was used to using the girls' bathroom by now, though I never hesitated to follow my girlfriends in. The rest of the day passed quickly. I fit right in with the girls and was accepted as Denise with no problem. We spent our free time talking about clothes and boys, two subjects I love talking about. After school, I hung my uniform up and put on a pair of green shorts and a top to wear around the house. That evening, my parents asked how I liked going to school as a girl. I had a great time. I told them I felt just like a girl talking about pretty outfits and cute boys. The rest of the week passed quickly, and soon it was dress-up day. I took extra care to set my hair the night before and picked out a pretty green dress that had a white bib trimmed in lace. I set out a full slip and a pair of the silky stockings Aunt Lynn had bought for me. I couldn't wait for morning. When I got up the next morning, I took my curlers out slowly to make sure my hair stayed curly. I decided to switch from my plain white panties to a pretty green pair with lace waistband and a lace-trimmed front. I fastened my bra and pulled on my stockings. I loved the feel of my stockings on my legs and the way I looked in them. I began to wonder if I could ever give up being a girl. I loved wearing pretty clothes, and I seemed to be enjoying myself so much more. Might as well enjoy it now, I thought as I pulled on my slip. I looked in the mirror and saw a pretty girl staring back at me. Yep, I thought, I never had this much fun as a boy. I pulled on my dress, brushed out my hair, and slipped on a pair of green pumps. As I turned from side to side in front of the mirror, I began to think something was missing. I hurried over to my jewelry box and picked out a pair of green earrings. Once I got them on, I was finally satisfied with my looks. At breakfast, I asked Mom to zip my dress up for me. You sure went all out. Didn't you, Denise? Why the fancy outfit? Some of us girls decided to get all dressed up today, Mom, I replied. We wanted to see what the boys would think when they saw us in pretty dresses and stockings. I can't wait to get to school. Mom laughed. Sounds like our little girl is growing up, Dad, she said to my father. Pretty soon she'll be going out on dates. Dad laughed, but no going steady for a few years yet, young lady. And don't let me catch you wearing my makeup. I finished breakfast, grabbed my purse and books, and took off for school. The girls at the bus stop were all dressed in pretty dresses, bras, stockings, and heels. But the boys didn't seem to notice. Beth looked at them and said, "No one even noticed. I might as well be invisible." Mary agreed. We went all out so they'd notice and they ignore us. Too bad they don't know what it's like to get all prettied up. I had to keep from laughing, right? I said. They'd appreciate it more if they had to do it. Things were different at school, though. The boys from other neighborhoods certainly seemed to like the way we were dressed. One boy, Jim, came over to us at recess and started to talk to me. Jim was very cute. He had blonde hair and the prettiest blue eyes. I glanced at my friends and they were all smiling at me. Soon, some other boys came over and joined my friends. We had a great time introducing ourselves and wondering what the new school year would be like. At lunchtime, Jim and his friends asked if they could sit with us. We readily agreed since we thought they were the cutest guys we ever saw. That was probably the best lunch I ever ate. Jim acted as if we were the only ones in the cafeteria. When it came time to go back to class, Jim walked me back before we said goodbye. Jim mentioned that there was to be a dance coming up the next Friday and wondered if I was going. I told him that I hadn't heard of it, but would really enjoy it if I could go. Jim smiled and said that if it was okay with my parents, he'd like me to be his date for the dance. I was on cloud 9. A really gorgeous boy wanted to take me to a dance. I told him I'd check with my parents and let him know. After school, I rushed in to talk to Mom. I pleaded with her to let me go to the dance, saying that it was so very important and Jim was so very cute. Mom agreed, so long as I let Dad drive me to the dance and Jim could meet me there. The next day, Jim was waiting for me at school. I happily explained that I'd meet him at the dance. Jim said he couldn't wait until the dance. He promised I'd have a good time. It was really hard for me to forget about the dance so I could pay attention in class. I just knew it was going to be so much fun. Later that day, I saw the announcement I had been waiting for. Cheerleader tryouts were being held next Monday. I felt as though I just had to be a cheerleader. They had such pretty blue and white uniforms. I could easily picture myself in the short, pleated blue and white skirt with the sleeveless white top leading cheers with the other girls. I hurried to the tryout Monday afternoon after class and took my chance at some of the routines. I had to watch as the captain of the cheerleaders did a routine and then do it myself. Luckily, I had changed out of my uniform skirt into a pair of shorts because several routines involved flips, which might have been embarrassing if my skirt flipped up. After we all took our chances, the coach said she'd post the notice the next day to show which girls were picked. I went home wondering how I'd get any sleep. That evening, Mom and Dad asked me if I was serious about becoming a cheerleader. I told them that I thought it would be a lot of fun to lead cheers at the basketball games and that I thought I'd be good at it. Mom looked a little worried. "I'm sure you think it'll be fun, dear," she said. "But remember, you're not really a girl." "Your mom's right, honey," Dad said. "We didn't mind the dance too much, but we're not sure about cheerleading. Don't you think you're taking this dressing up a little too seriously?" "But you told me I could spend this school year as a girl," I said, tears coming to my eyes. "I really love wearing pretty clothes and being treated like a girl. I promise to be careful. Just let me have fun." Dad looked at Mom. "She's right," he said. "We did promise her she could be a girl, and that's exactly what she's doing. Anyway, it's too late to make her and Denny switch back now." Mom still seemed very worried. "I know," she said, "but what if someone finds out she's really a boy?" Dad turned and looked at me. "We're worried about you, Denise," he said. "You better make sure that everyone thinks you're a girl, okay? I told them I'd be a perfect young lady." I tried to make it better by telling them that Bob thought I was a girl last summer and Jim thought I was enough of a girl to ask to the dance, but that seemed to only upset them more. "Just be careful," Mom said. "And remember, you're too young for dating." I finished my homework and finally drifted off to sleep that night. The next morning, I quickly dressed, ate breakfast, and hurried off to school. Cheerleading was all my girlfriends, and I could talk about on the way to school. When we got there, we hurried over to the bulletin board to see who made it. It was better than I thought. Not only had I been chosen, but so had my friends. Now we had to stop after class to get the uniforms. I wanted more than anything else in the world. When I walked in the house that day carrying my uniform, Mom got a big smile on her face. "Congratulations, sweetheart," she said while giving me a hug. "Somehow, I just knew that you'd make it." I couldn't wait to show Mom how I looked as a cheerleader. I raced to my room and quickly undid my skirt and blouse. I stepped out of my slip and pulled on the blue panties that came with the uniform. I adjusted them so my panties wouldn't show and pulled on the top. I quickly pulled up the skirt and put on my tennis shoes. Mom, Linda, and Denny were waiting as I came downstairs. "You look really cute, Denise," said Linda. "I'll bet you're the prettiest cheerleader at your school." Denny looked at me and smiled. "You're pretty enough to take out," he said with a laugh. "Sorry, Denny," I said. "A girl doesn't go on dates with her brother. Besides, I already have a date for the dance." Denny laughed. "I guess I'll have to find me another girl for the dance." "Too bad. I always wondered why cheerleaders were so popular." "By the way, Mom," I said, "they sent around a note at school looking for chaperones for the dance. Do you think Dad could stay instead of dropping me off?" I asked. "Stay where?" Dad asked as he came in from the garage. "Who's the pretty cheerleader?" he asked as he saw me. I smiled and twirled so that my skirt flared out. "How do you like it?" I asked breathlessly. "I'm a cheerleader now." Dad gave me a big hug. "You look great, honey," he said. "Now where am I supposed to stay?" I explained about chaperones for the dance, and Dad said he'd think about it. Mom said if I wanted to, I could wear my cheerleader uniform all evening. I was in no hurry to change, so I happily agreed. After dinner and homework, I practiced a few cheers for the family. I felt as though a dream had come true for me. I never wanted to take my uniform off. The week flew by, and soon it was the day of the dance. I hurried through dinner and raced upstairs to get ready. After a quick shower, I pulled on a pair of pink panties and a pink nylon nightgown. Mom lent me her heated curlers, and Linda helped set my hair. I picked out a light blue full slip, bra, and panty set that Aunt Lynn had bought for me last summer, and my blue sailor dress. I chose a pair of white pantyhose and low-heeled white shoes to complete the outfit. I changed my panties and slipped on my bra. After getting it hooked, I pulled on my slip and stockings. I quickly pulled on my dress, and Linda began to take out my curlers. I looked in the mirror after Linda finished with my hair and was thrilled to see a really cute blonde-haired girl looking back. The girl in the mirror had pretty curls and soft wavy hair. She wore a pretty blue dress, and her white stockings looked just right with her outfit. It was easy to understand what girls meant when they said they felt pretty. I looked cute but felt pretty. I went downstairs to wait for Dad to get ready. Soon the bedroom door opened and Dad stepped out. I did a double take because Dad was wearing a pink silk shorts outfit with a sheer, silky white blouse and a pink jacket. Under his blouse, I could see a lacy white camisole. He looked great. The outfit was a dressy type that women wore to work and parties during the summer. He had a pair of tan stockings on and pink pumps. He wore a shoulder-length, light brown wig that Mom had bought for him, and his makeup looked perfect. Dad was the picture of a lovely woman dressed for a summer party. Dad looked at me and smiled. "I hope you don't mind if your Aunt Jennifer goes instead," he asked. I gave him a hug and said, "Absolutely not. You look great, Aunt Jenny." Mom said that since it had been a long time since Dad was able to get prettied up, they thought it would be fun if he chaperoned as Jennifer. I didn't mind at all. I mean, if I could be a cheerleader, my dad was welcome to be Jennifer whenever he wanted. Dad and I both grabbed our purses and headed for the car. I just knew this was going to be a great evening. Once we got to the dance, I introduced Dad to Mr. Thompson, the teacher who was in charge. Mr. Thompson was young, cute and single, and didn't seem to mind at all that Aunt Jennifer was subbing for my dad. In fact, he seemed very happy to meet Aunt Jenny and promptly asked if she'd dance with him later. Dad flashed Mr. Thompson's smile and said he'd love to dance with him. I figured I'd better leave the happy young couple alone and find my date for the dance. Jim saw me and came over to meet me. "Hi, Denise. That's a pretty dress," he said with a grin. "You really look great tonight." I smiled and blushed. "Thanks, Jim," I managed to say. "You look great too." Jim reached over and took my hand in his. "Come on, let's get something at the refreshment stand." As we walked hand in hand, I felt a feeling of calmness and security. Here was a guy that made me feel like I was the only girl in the room. I began to wonder what it would be like if we were older and able to go on dates by ourselves. I was so taken by the idea that when Jim let go of my hand and put his arm around my waist, I moved closer to be near him. At the refreshment area, Jim bought us each a soft drink and we chatted about school and classes. I found myself listening intently to every word Jim said. He became very excited when I told him I had become a cheerleader. "I can't wait to see you at a game, Denise," Jim said. "I'll bet you'll do a great job." I wouldn't have minded in the least to just stand there next to this cute guy and talk all evening, but the music began to play, and Jim took my hand and led me to the dance floor. We danced every dance. I was having a really great time, and Jim seemed to be enjoying himself too. I especially enjoyed the couple of slow dances in which Jim held me close to him. I was in heaven with this guy and couldn't wait for the next slow dance. I thought I lost track of my dad for a while, but then I saw him dancing a slow dance with Mr. Thompson. I chuckled as I thought what a cute couple they made. After the dance, I said goodbye to Jim and Dad said goodbye to Mr. Thompson. I don't think either of us really wanted to leave, and Mr. Thompson seemed sad to see Aunt Jennifer go. I'll never forget that evening. Jim and I ate lunch together at school after that, and he showed up at every game to watch his favorite cheerleader. I was having the time of my life and knew I'd never want to see it end. I even began to decorate my notebooks with Jim and my initials in hearts. I forgot for a time that I was a boy and found myself involved in a typical girl's first love. The only problem with my classes came when I took a course in sewing. I didn't really want to take it, but Mom said it was something every girl should know. "You'll love making your own pretty outfits," she said. "You'll be able to add lots of pretty clothes to your wardrobe." I learned all about the basics of sewing and was actually enjoying it. Each girl in class had to design and make and model an outfit for the final exam. Mine was coming along pretty well until it came time to make the final fitting. I couldn't wear the dress to see what I had to alter and pin it at the same time. Linda was taller and more developed than me. Naturally. And Denny refused to help. "I'm a boy now, remember, sis?" he said, laughing, and boys don't model their sisters' dresses. One day, Mrs. Lorenz, a friend of our family, stopped by to visit. Mike, her son, was my age and in my class at school. We knew each other, but he was really Denny's friend. Mrs. Lorenz said that Mike seemed to be getting along well in middle school and asked how I was doing. I told her I thought it was fun, except for sewing class. "Yes," she laughed. "I remember when I took that class. Lucky for me, I had a sister who was close enough to my size." "Yeah," I said. "I need to find another girl to help me finish this dress before I flunk this class." Mrs. Lorenz hesitated for a moment before she spoke. "Maybe Mike could help you, Denise," Mrs. Lorenz said to my surprise. "He's about your height and all." We all looked at Mike, who was staring at his mother in shock. "Mom," he cried out. "What are you talking about? I can't help her. I'd have to wear her dress." Mrs. Lorenz leaned over to Mike and took his hand. Turning to Mom, she said, "Please don't misunderstand," she said. "Mike's a regular boy and all. It's just that he sometimes likes to wear my stuff at home and pretend he's a girl." Mike was just sitting there with his head down, looking like he wanted to run and hide. Mom got up and moved over next to where Mike was sitting. "Don't worry, Mike," she said, stroking his hair. "I promise I won't tell about you. I'll even let you in on a little secret. Denny's here isn't really a girl." Mike's head shot up and he stared at me. I was sitting there wearing a pretty white sundress with pink trim and a pink ribbon for a belt. I had on a strapless bra, a white half slip, and sandals. Mike seemed very bewildered as he looked from the pretty white bow that held up my ponytail to the pink nail polish on my toenails. Even Mrs. Lorenz seemed to be puzzled over what Mom had told them. "I'm not sure I heard you right, Laurie," said Mrs. Lorenz to Mom. "What do you mean Denise isn't a girl?" Mike looked at me very intently. "Yeah," said Mike. "I see her every day in her school uniform with the other girls, and she's even a cheerleader." "No, Mike," Mom said, coming to where I sat. "You see Denny in Denise's school uniform, and Denny is the cheerleader, not Denise." By now, Mrs. Lorenz seemed like she was beginning to understand. She looked at me and then at Denny and began to smile. "You mean that this pretty girl is actually your son, and that cute boy is really your daughter?" I started to laugh. I wondered what it would be like to be a girl, I said, and Denise wondered about being a boy. So we switched. For this school year, I'm a girl and she's a boy. Looking at Mike, I noticed that he seemed very interested all of a sudden. "You mean that I've been playing baseball and football with a girl at recess?" he asked. Denny looked at Mike and laughed. "I'm good enough to make you think I'm a boy. I even beat you in basketball games at recess." Mrs. Lorenz smiled at Denny and me and said, "You're really lucky kids. I always envied the boys at school. They never had to wear uniforms or take silly sewing classes." "Speaking of silly sewing classes, Mike," I said, giving him a sweet smile, "I could really use your help if you don't mind." Mike smiled back at me and said, "I'll help on one condition, Denise. Could you show me how to look as pretty as you do?" Mike was thin with fair skin and long wavy hair. I figured it wouldn't take a whole lot to make a girl out of him. "I'd love to, Mike," I shot back. "Come on, let's go to my room and get you started." Mike practically jumped out of his seat. "Back in a bit, Mom," he yelled as he hurried to follow me upstairs. "This is going to be fun." When we got to my room, Mike just stood and stared. "You mean you get to have a girl's bedroom and everything, Denise?" I realized that to Mike, what I had come to take for granted was a dream. "Why not Mike?" I replied. "After all, I am a girl?" "Yeah, right," Mike said, looking into my closet. "Look at all those pretty dresses. You're so lucky. I wish I could dress like that." I took him by the hand and walked into the closet. Let's pick out a couple of pretty outfits to show your mom what a pretty girl you could be. Mike and I began picking out clothes for him to model. We settled on a cute pale yellow shorts set, a school uniform, and several dresses. We talked as we chose, and I asked him what clothes of his mom's he wore. A couple of times I wore her slacks. Mike said, I tried on a couple of dresses and nightgowns, but that's about it. Why do you need to know? In that case, you'll need a lot of help. I said, for example, putting on a bra can be tricky at first. But don't worry, when I'm done, you'll be able to get dressed just like a real girl. Mike seemed stunned at the idea of being able to wear a bra. You mean you'll let me wear girls' underwear too? Mike exclaimed. I've never worn girls' underwear. I tried some of Mom's stuff, but it was too big for me. Of course you'll wear girls' underwear, silly. I laughed. Don't you want to be a girl? Mike's face brightened. You bet I do, Denise. He said, I can't wait to get dressed. I picked out a pair of yellow panties and a white bra to go with the short set. Mike was already out of his shirt and pants and waiting for the underwear. I told him to take the panties and shorts and change in the closet. When he came out, he had a big smile on his face. These feel great, Denise, he said, running his hand over his butt. I love the way the underwear feels against my skin. I showed him how to hook the bra in front and then twist it around. Once he got the cups in the proper place, I adjusted the straps for him. Mike pulled on the sleeveless top and began to admire himself in the mirror. We're not done yet, young lady. I said, laughing, put on your sandals and let me fix your hair. After Mike put on his sandals, I began to brush his hair. Since he liked to dress up at home, his mom let him wear his hair a little longer than most guys, and I was able to fix it into a cute, short girl style. I gave him a pair of yellow clip-on earrings to wear, and we went down to show Mrs. Lorenz her new daughter. How do I look in these clothes? Mom, Mike asked, do I look as nice in them as they feel? Mrs. Lorenz seemed quite pleased with her new daughter. You make a really cute girl, Mike. His mom said, you certainly look much nicer wearing clothes meant for a girl your age. Mrs. Lorenz studied Mike for a moment and then asked, are you really wearing girls' underwear too? Mike pulled out his blouse to show the outline of his bra. Denise let me wear a bra under my top, he said with a grin. Smoothing the back of his shorts, he turned to his mother. Look, Mom, he said, laughing. Panty lines. Everyone broke up laughing. Mike turned to me and gave me a hug. Thanks, Denise, he said. This makes me so happy. We're not done yet, Mike, I reminded him. We still have a few more outfits for you to wear for this fashion show. Mike twirled around so that his mother could see how he looked in the back. She's right, Mom, Mike said as we headed back up to my room. Wait till you see some of the pretty clothes I'm going to model for you. Back in my room, Mike reluctantly began to take off his shorts and top. I hate to take these off, Denise, he said sadly. I've never had a chance to wear such pretty clothes that really fit me. Don't get all upset, Mike, I said reassuringly. Leave on your panties and bra and put these on, I said as I handed him a pair of blue knee socks. After Mike got the socks on, I handed him a white half slip with lace trim at the bottom. Mike pulled on the slip and hurried over to the mirror to see how he looked. This is really nice, Denise, he said while turning side to side. This feels so soft and nice, I can't believe it. It's too bad I have to wear it under something else, Mike said as he looked at the slip. I know what you mean, Mike, I replied. They look so pretty, I hate to cover them up. Still, it feels great when my slip brushes against my legs. I gave Mike one of my uniform blouses to wear and helped him into the jumper after he buttoned his blouse. Mike slipped on a pair of my loafers and we went back downstairs to continue his modeling. Mike made the perfect schoolgirl. His hair was just long enough to make him look like a young girl, and the jumper was a perfect fit. I found myself wishing that Mike could go to school as a girl too. I felt certain we'd make a great set of girlfriends for each other. Mike brought me back from my daydream, reminding me that it was time to model another outfit. This time, I thought I'd go all out and make Mike into the girl of his dreams. Once we got back to my room, I unzipped his jumper and told him to take off everything except his panties. Mike seemed disappointed. "What's wrong, Denise?" he asked. "Is that all I get to try on?" I smiled at Mike and said, "Nothing's wrong, Mike. I just thought of an outfit I think you'll enjoy. Trust me, you're going to be thrilled when we're all done here." I searched through my lingerie drawer until I found the matching panties, bra, and slip Aunt Lynn bought for my gown. Handing them to Mike, I told him to change into them. "Let me know if you need any help with the bra," I said, "and hurry up. We have a lot to do." Mike went into the closet to change and came out minutes later in the slip, bra, and panties. "Good going, Mike," I said. "I see you got the bra on with no problem." I handed him a pair of tan pantyhose and said, "Now, let's see how serious you are about being a girl." Mike looked at the stockings and then at me. "I'll be happy to show you Denise," he said, laughing. "If you've got it, I'll wear it." "That's a girl, Mike," I said, hugging him. "Let me help you get these on so you don't get a run in them." I showed Mike how to roll each leg up and gradually pull them up his legs. Once he got them all the way up, I told him to sit at a vanity table. He seemed puzzled but excited at the same time. "I hope you're going to do what I think you're going to do," Mike said with a grin. "You got it, young lady," I told him. "You're about to become a beautiful girl. Compliments of CoverGirl and Avon." Mike was thrilled as I began to apply a light base coat of makeup to his face. He was trembling so much that I was afraid I'd poke him in the eye when I put mascara on him. After I finished with his blush, eyeshadow, and a shade of pink lipstick, I began to apply nail tips to his fingernails. "Hold still, will you?" I pleaded. "You can see how you look when I'm all done with you." After his nail tips were firmly attached, I put a coat of light pink nail polish on him. "Now, are you sure you want to go through with this, Mike?" I asked. I was sure I knew his answer, but wanted to make the moment just a little more intense for him. "I'm positive, Denise," he pleaded. "Please don't stop now. I've never had so much fun before." I walked into my closet and presented him with the pink gown Aunt Lynn had bought for me. "Here it is," I said. "What do you think of this dress?" Mike gasped when I handed him the gown. "It's beautiful, Denise," he said as tears began to well up in his eyes. "It's the prettiest dress I've ever seen. I thought you'd like it." I said, "You're right. It is a gorgeous dress. Just what you need to make you feel like a pretty young woman." I helped him step into the dress, and when we had it adjusted on his shoulders, I zipped it up and hooked the closure at the back of the neckline. "You're stuck in it now, Mike," I giggled. "You'll never get this dress off without help." "If it were up to me," he laughed, "I'd never take it off." "I can't wait to see if I look as great as I feel." Mike headed to the full-length mirror, but I stopped him. "Believe me," I said, "you're a beautiful young lady." I helped him slip into the matching pumps and then added the necklace and earrings that matched the gown. Mike seemed to have no trouble adjusting to walking in heels. I guess he practiced with his mom's shoes at home. When Mike saw his reflection in the mirror, I thought for sure he was going to cry. "Hey, don't start crying," I warned him. "You'll mess up your mascara." I quickly dried his tears with a tissue. "I'm sorry, Denise," Mike said in a soft, quivering voice. "It's just that I can't believe that I look so pretty. I never thought I'd look so much like a girl." "Just a couple of more things," I said as I began to search my lingerie drawer again. "Aha, here they are," I said as I held up the bra inserts I had worn. I slipped them into his bra, sprayed him with a little heaven scent behind his ears, then giggling, I sprayed some into his cleavage, handing him the clutch purse that went with the outfit. I said, "It's showtime. Megan, let's finish this fashion show with a bang." Mike smiled at me. "Megan." He said, "That sounds like a very pretty name." "Yes, Megan it is." Megan smiled, made a very graceful turn, and followed me downstairs. I asked him to wait until I introduced him, then went into the room where everyone sat. I would now like to introduce the lovely Miss Megan Lorenz, I said to the group. Everyone laughed and began clapping until Megan walked into the room. Suddenly, all the clapping stopped as they all stared in disbelief at the beautiful young woman in pink gown and heels. Mrs. Lorenz was the first to speak. "Michael," she said in a shocked tone, "you're beautiful." Mom looked Megan over from head to toe and smiled. "You're a very lovely young woman, Megan," she said. "I think Denise has some stiff competition here." Denny got up and walked all around Megan as if he were checking out a used car. "They're right, Megan," he said as he sat back down. "How would you like to be my date for the next school dance?" Just then, Dad and Mr. Lorenz walked in from outside. "Now, who's setting up a date for what dance?" he asked. He looked at Megan's dress, and I could tell he was confused. Before Dad could ask any more questions, Mr. Lorenz spoke up. "Hey, Denise, why not introduce your cute girlfriend to Michael? He's so shy he can't bring himself to ask any girls he likes. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to take her to a dance." Megan just stood there speechless. She'd only been a girl for about an hour, and she'd already been asked for a date. I could also tell by the way she looked at her mom that her dad had never seen her dressed up. Mom broke the tension for the moment by introducing Dad and Megan's dad to her as a girlfriend of mine who was going to help me with a sewing project. Dad knew that Mike and his mom had come into the house before Mr. Lorenz got there. He also seemed to recognize the dress Megan was wearing. Putting two and two together, he began to smile. Mom shot him a look as if to say, "Be quiet." Mr. Lorenz looked at Megan and then at Mrs. Lorenz. "Would you like to explain what's going on here?" he asked his wife. "Unless I'm wrong, that pretty girl over there is actually our son." Mr. Lorenz was clearly upset. "Don't get worked up, dear," said Mrs. Lorenz. "We were just wondering what Mike would have looked like if he'd been a girl. Let's try to remember that we had a son, not a daughter," said Mr. Lorenz. "Mike, why in the world did you let them dress you up like that?" he asked. "I don't mind, Dad," said Mike. "It was really fun. We had a little fashion show before you came." "What do you mean, fun?" asked Mike's dad. "You're all done up in a dress and makeup and you think it's fun." Mr. Lorenz seemed to be getting more agitated by the moment. Before Mike could say anything to his dad, Mrs. Lorenz spoke up. "I seem to recall quite a few times in college when you thought it was fun, Bob. Remember all of the dances that we used to go to and shopping to buy a gown for you to wear to the semi-formal one Christmas." By now, Mr. Lorenz's anger had turned to embarrassment. His face was turning red and he looked like he wanted to leave, and fast. "Mary?" Mr. Lorenz cried out. "What are you trying to do? Make me look like a nut? That was years ago, for heaven's sake. Just a stupid joke." "Really, Bob?" Mrs. Lorenz said, smiling. "What about that vacation trip we took when Mike was only a baby? I don't remember my husband Bob going on that trip. Seems to me it was just me and my girlfriend Nicole from college." "So, Bob, laugh, Dad. You went to college dances as a girl and even dressed as a woman for a vacation. I'll bet that must have been something to see." Mr. Lorenz was now the one who seemed like he wanted to hide. "It was just a joke," he said to my father. "Believe me, just a joke." "Yes, I'm sure it was Bob," said Dad, turning to face his embarrassed friend. He continued, "As a matter of fact, it was just a joke when Lori and her sister turned me into a woman last summer." Mr. Lorenz was about to speak, but suddenly he stopped and stared at Dad. Dad smiled at him and said, "And I think it also started out as a joke when the girls dressed Denny over there in Denise's clothes a couple of years back." Mrs. Lorenz looked at Mom and smiled. "Lori, you devil. Do you mean to tell me that you and your sister actually got Tom here into a dress? He seems like the last guy I'd picture wearing a dress." Mom walked over to Dad and put her arms around him. Smiling at Dad, she looked at Mr. Lorenz and said getting him into a dress wasn't too hard. Certainly not as hard as getting him out of it was. Mr. Lorenz seemed quite puzzled. "Hold on a minute. What's all this about you and Denny in dresses?" he said to Dad. Dad laughed and looked at Mom. "Maybe you'd better explain it, Lori," he said. "After all, Jennifer was your plan." Mom explained everything to Mr. Lorenz, from my sister's first putting a dress on me to Dad's becoming a woman. Mr. Lorenz was amazed and seemed to be filled with questions for Dad. It seemed odd to Mike and me to hear our dads talking about their favorite dresses and whether they preferred pantyhose to nylons and a garter belt. After a short time, Mom spoke up. "Excuse me, ladies," she said to Dad and Mr. Lorenz. "I do believe we need to settle the problem of what to do with Megan here." Mr. Lorenz walked over to Mike and put his arm around him. "It's okay with me if you want to help Denise with her project, but I don't want you dressing up in Mom's clothes anymore." He looked at Mike and smiled. "If you wouldn't mind your mom's friend, Nicole would like to take you shopping. A young lady can't dress like a tomboy all of the time, you know. She needs some pretty clothes to make her feel like a young woman." Mike was thrilled. He could be Megan whenever he wanted, and his Aunt Nicole and Mom were going to help make his own Cinderella story come true. Dad and I also got something out of the deal. Megan would be my model for sewing class, and Dad planned on shopping as Jennifer with her new friend Nicole.